Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 12th, 2026 meeting of the Lakewood Planning Commission. I call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Buckley.
Here.
Commissioner Curious.
Here.
Commissioner Holden.
Here.
Commissioner Muller.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner O'Neill is absent. Mr. Clerk, will you please read our first agenda item for the evening into the record?
The first agenda item is rezoning case 250001-2555 South Kipling Street, rezoning.
All right, thank you. I believe there will be a staff presentation and an applicant presentation on this one.
Correct.
All right. We will start with the applicant. So the applicant for 2555 South Kipling. Or-
Actually, you need to talk into the mic, not the headset, so I apologize.
All right, good evening. Thanks for coming out. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves by name and proceed when you are ready.
Okay, I guess that's as low as it goes for me. There we go. I'm Lisa Gard. I'm a planning consultant. And I'm working with the property owner, Mike Jordan. We've been working on this project for a little while here now. And this application is for rezoning from R143 to MGS. And we're going to start with Mike. He's excited to speak to you, and he's much taller than me, so I'm going to let him go first.
Good evening, and I appreciate you guys accepting us tonight. And I'm excited about rezoning this property. It's been used for businesses for the last 40 plus years, and I'm the first owner who's stepped up to get his own properly. Working with the City of Lakewood has been great. We really enjoy the staff, and we look forward to working with them continually into the future. And right now it's just for a land use rezoning. But if we do decide to do any future developments on the property, of course, we'll go through the right legal permitting process. We basically right now intend to keep on using the property the way it has been used since I've owned it since 2018. We keep it clean, we keep it picked up, very respectful of our neighbors. We actually got a couple neighbors here, they're great. And we look forward to receiving the MGS zoning. We've had the land platted, and that went well. So now we know exactly the perimeters of the property. And like I said, if we do any future developments, we'll definitely go through the permitting process and get it done. Oh, how do I do the slides? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you can read this stuff.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm going to read this off. It says, the property is just under 2 acres and situated on the north of the intersection on South Kipling Street and Morrison Road. I purchased the property in 2018. The Jefferson County tax records show the property use as industrial mixed. Thank you. I've lived here since 2018, about 6.5, almost 7 years. The existing building to the south of residence was already built out with 2 offices with a contractor shop and to manage my business. The larger storage building to the east is used for to store shop materials as needed. And of course, we want to bring this into compliance with the MGS zoning. Let's see. I'd like to rezone the property in MGS to utilize the existing buildings on site for the administration of my glass business. The business is managed from my property and provides commercial and residential window installation, repair, custom shower glass services, and at customers' locations around the Denver metro area and Lakewood communities. The conceptual land use plan provides the details for each building's use.
Okay, my part.
All right?
You can stand over here next to me.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to talk about the plans and proposal.
And Ms. Guard, please speak into the microphone.
Oh, yeah, I have to lower it now.
No worries.
Okay, there, can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. We're going to review the plans and proposal for the rezoning and then address the zoning criteria next. This shows a conceptual use plan. We worked with an engineer to provide the layout of the property. There are no new buildings planned for construction. The residence is the top building on the northwest side.
Northwest, yeah.
And then below that is the smaller contractor shop space. And then to the east is the larger storage building. Oh, sorry, I wasn't close enough to the, you could still
Yeah,
hear me?
thank you.
Okay. If rezoned, the current residence can be renovated, separating the upper living space and the lower level for office space to meet the Lakewood design criteria. The smaller 2,700 square foot building would serve as a contractor shop, office, and storage break room. So continue with what Mike was saying they're using it for at the moment. And the larger building to the east would continue to serve as warehouse storage for materials for Mike's glass and window installation business. And now we'll look at the criteria. This section reviews how the proposal meets all three listed criteria for the rezone approval. The proposed use will be in alignment with the spirit of the ordinance and permitted uses for the MGS district and meet criteria 1 and 2. Criteria 1, just to review, is the proposed zoning or rezoning promotes the purposes of this zoning ordinance as stated. In criteria 2, the proposal, zoning, or rezoning is compatible with existing surrounding land uses or the land uses envisioned in the comprehensive plan. Mike's property offers a unique opportunity to provide a mix of residential, office, and contractor shop space, providing economic opportunity through office support jobs and working on crews for windows and office support, and increases support for other local businesses for services used by having more workers in the area who may use shops and services nearby. The request also implements the visions, goals, and recommendations of the City of Lakewood's comprehensive plan. It promotes the orderly development and redevelopment of land within the City of Lakewood. It ensures the effective integration of development and redevelopment with surrounding land uses. It ensures the economic vitality of the City of Lakewood. And finally, it promotes mixes of commercial and residential uses within the mixed-use zone. Criteria 3 has 3 components, and our request meets 2 of these components. Criteria A is the proposed zoning or rezoning promotes implementation of the comprehensive plan. And criteria B, there has been a material change in the character of the neighborhood or the city generally, such that the proposed zoning or rezoning would be in the public interest and consistent with that change. The proposed zoning promotes implementation of a newly adopted comprehensive plan, Envision Lakewood 2040, showing the property is in a neighborhood hub. That meets criteria 3A. The neighboring mixed-use property has been operating for over 20 years. There's a car wash since 2002, office and work spaces just to the west of Mike, and that started in 2003. Just west of that is the North Bear Crossing retail and in the restaurant space. That was built in 2004. And then adjacent townhomes next to the car wash just south of Mike were just built in 2022. The changing character of the neighborhood is consistent with the change in MGS zoning for this property, and that meets the criteria 3B. And it's all showing consistency for upzoning Mike's property. All right, Mike, you get to do the last one to summarize.
Rezoning this property will have a positive impact on the community, surrounding neighborhoods, and align with and to be consistent with the current zoning in surrounding areas. Reuse of the existing buildings will support a more sustainable and suitable neighborhood. And like I said earlier, I look forward to working with you and everybody here on this. It's pretty cool. So we're happy about it.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicants? I do have a handful of questions. Mr. Jordan, I think you said that this property that you own, that you live on, that you have your business on, has been used for some sort of business for about 40 years?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Continuously that whole time, even predating your ownership of it?
Yes, sir. Not my type of business, but yeah, prior to me, there was a
But a business?
painting business, landscaping businesses.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been used constantly for businesses.
Okay, and so for a long time then, this property has been, I guess, out of compliance with the current zoning standards, but it's been continuously used for quite a while. Do you know if the property is considered non-conforming? That is, the use that would not normally be permitted by zoning came into effect on that property at a time when it was legal, or is the use on the property actually unlawful right now? Like it came into use at a time when it contravened what the zoning code allowed?
I believe that it's a little bit of both. Because,
Okay.
what I mean by that. Oh, wow.
Hi, Laura McKibben with staff. I can speak to that.
Sure.
So technically, the use is unlawful. It would be an
Okay.
illegal use that was not legally permitted prior to any code changes. So it's not considered non-conforming.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Jordan, you can go ahead and answer
Yeah,
with what you were
thank you.
going to say.
Yeah, and basically, like the county, they tax it as commercial and industrial use, and so I've been paying taxes. I didn't even challenge it. When my assistant and I went down to Jeffco to find out about at the assessor's office, they thought that we were there to challenge it. We weren't. We're like, no, we agree to it. We're going to continue to pay the commercial taxes on this property. We just want to make sure that we're legal with you guys and in compliance. They said, yeah, we're fine.
Got it.
It's kind of a
That's what you called
conflict.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I called her to be like, help me with this, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
The county wouldn't care about zoning of a property inside the
Correct.
city. That's the city's business. And I guess the county also wouldn't complain if you're just willingly paying more taxes.
That was right. Yeah, they were
Right.
totally fine
I
with
tried
it.
to tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They liked it, I'm sure.
Okay. During the time that you've occupied the property, have you had any complaints or issues raised with the neighbors about the fact that there's an illegal use on your property?
I don't believe so. Laura, gonna answer that?
Go ahead.
We did look into the code enforcement history, and there were no complaints based on the use. There was a complaint several years ago based on a trailer being on the property, but it was prior to his ownership.
Okay. Thank you again for that. I don't think I have any other questions right now. Appreciate you coming out here and making an effort, working with the city to bring your property into compliance and go through this process. I want to acknowledge that what I just asked you to state in public, in a public meeting, that you have a property with an illegal use on it is not a comfortable thing to say. I appreciate your forthrightness and frankness of admitting that here. We'll hear from the staff presentation next. If there's further questions for you later, we may call you back up. But thank you, Mr. Jordan and Ms.
Yes.
Gard.
Absolutely, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laura McKibben. I'm representing staff tonight to present the case for RZ 25-0001 for 2555 South Kipling Street. So the existing zoning is 1 acre lot residential, R143, and they are requesting to rezone to MGS, mixed use general suburban. This is an aerial image of the site. You can see it's off of Kipling and north of West Morrison Road. The zoning to the north of the property is R143, the same as the subject property. To the south and the west, it is MGS, and to the east, it is mixed-use neighborhood suburban. The process for a rezoning includes a pre-planning application, a neighborhood meeting, a formal application, and then 2 public hearings, one that we are having tonight before commission, and if recommended with approval, we will have another public hearing at City Council for a final determination. We did have a neighborhood meeting for this project on April 17th of 2025. In general, the neighbors were in support for the current owner to stay at this property. Topics that were discussed were uses that can be proposed in the MGS zone district, lighting, vehicle trips, signage, and the overall rezoning process. Public notification was mailed to owners, tenants, and community organizations. It was sent to 172 tenants within 500 feet of the property, and it was sent to 10 neighborhood organizations. It was published online at your hub, posted at the Civic Center, and the sign was posted on the property. The referral was sent to 7 outside agencies for review. 4 responded and all had no response to the project, but said that they would like their standards to be followed if future development were proposed. The intent of the MGS district. The MG district is intended to allow for mixed use and community commercial development. Typical non-residential uses include those necessary to support the community. The suburban context reflects a more auto-oriented environment where the surrounding street pattern and access to adjacent neighborhoods is not conducive to pedestrian activity or connectivity. The rezoning review criteria. The first is conformance with the intent of the zoning ordinance, section 1712, compatible with surrounding land uses or land uses envisioned in the comp plan, or they meet one of the following of the 3 options in number 3, which is to promote the implementation of the comprehensive plan, there has been a material change in the neighborhood, or the property was rezoned in error. The next few slides will show you a use comparison for the R143 and MGS district. You can see that the MGS district has higher intensity uses, and we will flip through a couple of these slides to show you the breadth of different uses that could be proposed in either districts. R143, this is the extent of the permitted primary uses. MGS, this is the beginning of the uses that can be proposed in this district. So here we have a continuation of the permitted uses in the MGS district. These are limited uses, which are subject to compliance with the supplemental standards in section 1743. I did add this to note that his proposed use is a limited use in the MGS zone district if it were to be approved. That limitation is regarding vehicles that can be parked overnight on the property that relate to the business. These are special uses in either district. They have to also comply with the section 1743 and supplemental standards, and they are subject to a special use permit. These are the differences between the dimensional standards in each district. You'll see that with R143, the minimum lot size required is 1 acre. With MGS, there is no minimum. The minimum lot width in R143 is 140 feet, whereas MGS does not have a minimum. Max dwelling units in R143 are 1, and that's not to count accessory dwellings, which you can have 1. MGS does not have a limit on residential density. The front setback is changing from a minimum of 25 feet to a minimum of 10. In the MGS district, there's also a maximum front setback of 85 feet. This is an interior lot, but a non-primary setback in R143 is 20 feet, and that does not apply in MGS. The minimum side setback is changing from 15 to 0 or 5 feet. The minimum rear is also changing to 0 or 5 feet. Height is changing from 35 feet to 60 feet. And minimum open space would be changing from 65% to 20%, although 30% is required if it's a single-use multifamily development. So this is the applicant's conceptual land use plan. It does show existing conditions as they described with their presentation. If he were to come in for any future development, that plan would be reviewed administratively under our Article 2 for major site plan review. But this is all existing conditions as he noted. The intent of the zoning ordinance. This is section 17.1.2 of the code. This proposal meets the intent of the zoning ordinance because it implements the vision, goals, and recommendations of the comp plan. It promotes orderly development and redevelopment of land within the city. It ensures effective integration of development and redevelopment with surrounding land uses. It ensures economic vitality for the city, and it promotes mixes of commercial and residential uses within mixed zone districts. The comp plan is a guiding document for the city. We use it for most land use decisions. It provides a vision, guiding principles, and goals and strategies. This is a snip of the future land use map, and you can see Mr. Jordan's site highlighted in yellow. It is within a neighborhood hub. Compatibility with the comprehensive plan and surrounding land uses. Surrounding zone districts, as we touched on, are 143, MNS, and MGS. To the north, there's a single family dwelling. To the east, we have a fiber cable optic vault and a restaurant. South is a car wash and 22 townhome dwelling units. And to the west, there are office and retail land uses. Permitted uses in the MGS zone district are compatible with the mix of existing single-family, townhome, commercial, and other land uses that you'll find adjacent to this site. The proposed rezoning is compatible with the neighborhood hub future land use category and the comprehensive plan. And here is an aerial image of the adjacent land uses from the site, and I believe they touched on this as well, but you can see the shopping center over here to the west. You have office and retail directly to the west of the property. Here are the townhomes that were mentioned in the slide above, the car wash. This is that fiber optic vault, a restaurant, and then you can see beyond Morrison Road, it does transition into single family and duplexes. To the north, we do have single family, and then over here, you'll see further commercial uses to the west, northwest. Implementation of the comprehensive plan. The property is within the neighborhood hub future land use category. A rezone from R143 to MGS directly resolves the inconsistency between the current zone district and the future land use designation that we have now. The proposal supports sustainability through adaptive reuse, and it also supports and enables a locally owned glass company to contribute to Lakewood, which also contributes to land use diversity and an industry mix with local employment opportunities as well. The project also meets the material change criteria. The surrounding neighborhood has transitioned to include more commercial and higher density land uses, resulting in a development pattern that has changed and will support this rezone. The MGS district better aligns with the existing and evolving land use context, and we can see it as a logical extension from the commercial that we see surrounding the property. We did receive a traffic analysis and prelim drainage report. They are acceptable per staff. Final plans will be required with any development proposals, but as this is an existing site with no planned development right now, we did not provide that in this PowerPoint. Findings of fact and order. Based on the information provided, staff finds that the applicant submitted a request to rezone 2555 South Kipling Street from 1 acre lot residential to mixed-use general suburban. A concept plan was prepared and showed general conformance with the MGS zone district. Notice of the public hearing was provided to property owners and residents within 500 feet and registered community organizations within half a mile as required by the ordinance. All other notification and posting requirements have been satisfied, and the request was reviewed by the appropriate referral agencies. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning promotes the purposes of the zoning ordinance as stated in section 1712. The proposed rezoning is compatible with the existing land uses and land uses envisioned in the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning promotes the implementation of the comprehensive plan, and the proposed rezoning is in the public interest. Staff recommends that Planning Commission adopt the findings of fact A through I as listed in the staff report and recommend that City Council approve rezoning case RZ 250001.
All right,
Happy to take any questions.
great. Commissioners, any questions? Once again, I do have a question.
Please, go ahead.
It's my understanding from reading the packet that the primary residence on the site that Mr. Jordan currently lives in will be permitted in the MGS zone district as an ADU, an
Correct.
accessory dwelling unit. Our code does limit accessory dwelling units to a maximum size of 1,400 square feet, 1,400. Is that existing dwelling he lives in less than or equal to 1,400 square feet?
Let me take a look at the concept plan, and I believe that when he came in for a building permit to apply for the ADU, because you'd have to convert the rest of the space, we would ensure that it does not exceed that, but I can tell you the
Got
square
it.
footage of the building.
Okay. Yeah, so the applicant, my understanding is, does intend to apply for a building permit to do some renovation of the existing buildings, but that will not need a site plan because he's not building any new buildings or altering more than 20% of the site or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay,
Commissioner Buckley?
yes.
I believe the size limitation only applies to single-family residential accessory dwelling units.
Okay,
I do not believe we have a similar size limit when it's related to a ADU for business.
okay. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. Be good to confirm that in the code.
I'm going to find that in the code for you
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're going through all this trouble to rezone the property, that every last detail is actually legal if this gets approved.
It's Article 4, page 4-11, starting with number 8.
And it says, where identified as a limited use in any non-residential zone district, an accessory dwelling unit must be located in the same building as the permitted use and shall be subject to the following. And it does not list, as Bria noted in the section above, the size limitation as single family has.
Okay, perfect. Well, then that won't be a problem. That was the main question I was wondering about. Okay, and I think you stated in the presentation, all the other dimensional standards that go with the MGS zone are met by just the existing layout of where the buildings happen to be on the lot, like the setbacks and so forth.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions, Commission? All right, thank you for that.
Thank
We'll
you.
move into public testimony on this case. There is a Joanne Cambruzzi who signed in tonight, and under the column where it says, do you wish to speak, yes or no, you wrote possibly. Are you here and do you wish to speak?
I just had a couple questions.
Please come to the microphone then to ask them.
We're in the neighborhood north.
Please speak into the microphone. So.
I live north and they overlook Bear Creek.
Okay.
We talk about on the map, the zoning and the neighbors above. There's a development that we'll talk about next week, I think 2501, and it said it's consistent with the neighborhood. A, we weren't aware that this was an operating business illegally. And B, I mean, for the residents that live in that development, we don't see how that's going to enhance the value of our properties, putting another commercial development within there. And it talked about notifying 172 surrounding neighborhoods. Nobody in my neighborhood that I spoke to had been notified for public comment, other than the sign, and we did get the notification. So I guess just as a resident, I have concern putting another commercial site in there and what it's going to do, traffic. And I know the studies have been done, and I guess we're going to talk about next week 2501, which I think is zoned for, or proposed to zone for 8 homes. So I'm curious if no
Right.
one from Overlook is here on that development. Because certainly if I was spending $2 million plus on a house, I wouldn't want to look at a construction site.
Okay, yeah, so
That
we'll,
was-
we'll talk about that project next week, but thank you for your comments as it regards to this application. And we look forward to seeing you next week, too, if you can make it. I hope you can. The question for staff, I'm sure the notices were sent out. There's a standard radius. Can you remind us what that is? It strikes me.
500 feet from the subject property for owners and tenants. It's likely that their property was outside of that notification area.
Okay, yeah, it strikes me as likely as well. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this case? Sir, come on up. And please state your name for the record and either your address or what part of town you're in.
Sure. My name is Scott McKillop. I live across the street and slightly up the hill from Mr. Jordan's property.
Okay.
I've lived there with my wife for 20 years. I would love to have Mr. Jordan build a couple of $2 million homes on his property, but I don't think my dream of escalating property values is either fair or reasonable in this situation. Mr. Jordan's been a good neighbor. That property has been the way it is for 20 years since we've been there. And we moved in knowing what it looked like, and I think they're going to maybe do some renovations, and that'll make it look even better. But he's been a good neighbor, and there's not a concern that I have as a neighbor that is going to increase traffic or create any sort of problem. It's not like they're building a fast food restaurant in there. So I appreciate the last speaker's concerns, and share them to the extent I'd love to see a couple $2 million homes built there. But really, realistically, I think he's been a good neighbor, and that property is the way it always has been when we moved in, and expecting it to be something different from what it's been for such a long time, I think is unrealistic. So.
All right, thank you.
All right.
We appreciate you coming out. Would anyone else like to comment on this case? All right, going once, twice, three times, I will close public comment. Commissioners, we can discuss the case. Any comments? Commissioner Molinar.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff. So the first speaker brought up something about like benefits to the neighborhood, and you spoke about that as well. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on like what kind of benefits this business brings to the neighborhood so that we all know? Thank you.
Part of the comp plan is a 20-minute neighborhood, so we're looking for services to be accessed with 20 minutes of a subject property, right? This is somebody that's providing a service. I believe he does bathrooms, residential. He also does commercial glass services. So that's somebody that likely in the entire neighborhood, if they needed these services, they could access it from him. And we can also think about the future. So in 20 or 30 years, if Mr. Jordan weren't there, perhaps we would see some more density on the property. Perhaps we would see some homes that are platted and are maybe still single family, but we would see some more density go in there. There's also the chance that we could see retail or some other service for the community and a neighborhood hub, what that envisions. So I believe it's the fact that he is providing that service to his neighborhood and Lakewood as a whole and the Denver metro area that would be a benefit for the neighbors. Sure.
Commissioner Carius.
Thank you. I don't have any questions for staff. I think mostly I just have a big thanks to the property owner for going through the process of bringing the property into compliance. If it were my father, and your property very much reminds me of my father's property, he would not have suffered through this process. I noted your application came in over a year ago. It's a long time to be working through city processes. And I imagine you spent some money on it as well.
A lot.
Yes. So I think, more of my questions and comments, they're, again, mostly comments, it really shouldn't take a property owner a year to get through this type of process for an existing business that is, respected in the community. I'd like to see this process made simpler and easier, particularly for single, families and people running their businesses, small business owners in this community. I think if anything, it just highlights some of the concerns I have with our process. Beyond that, I think the project looks great, and I'd like to see more of them. I also think, again, like I said, I've lived with ADUs on every single property that my family had, and this is an ADU to a commercial unit. It fits in with the neighborhood. It matches the design. If anything I could ask for is install a sidewalk up front, if you could, just because if I go visit, I'll be walking or taking the bus. So
Sounds good.
that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Buckley,
Go ahead, Mr. Rice.
if it's appropriate. One thing I'd like to share with Commissioner Carius. So this request this evening, it's a very old case. Actually, I compliment Mr. Jordan. He has worked with staff to delay this particular project as we went through the zoning process. So that was part of the delay. In fact, I'll share that several cases you're going to hear over the next couple of weeks are kind of in that. They all paused their projects to let us finish up the zoning project. So Mr. Jordan was wonderful to work with us, and we're happy to get him on the agenda before you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the applicant for sticking through this long process and your commitment to it. That's really great to hear. In regards, Mr. Rice, to the comment about the zoning process, would this permit application have been necessary under the zoning that had been passed and then repealed?
No, it would not.
It would not. So this whole hearing and exercise is because we had to wait for that to happen and then for the applicant to go through this process again.
Correct.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying.
All right, I'll echo the sentiments of thanks and gratitude to the property owner for going through this process. And I also hear the sentiment of a sidewalk in front of that property. Would be nice to see. Just a question for staff. I believe if he gets a building permit but not a site plan, he does not have to install a sidewalk under our code. Is that correct?
It is correct. In engineering, when we worked with the conceptual level plans, it was determined that since the use has been existing and those vehicle trips are existing, the change of use to the building would not actually trigger those public improvements. However, in the future, if Mr. Jordan ever wants to put an addition, like we discussed, 20% or over, or would like to add a building to the property, we would see public improvements with that development.
Okay, such as a sidewalk, and that's probably the main one, just given what the frontage of the property is
And
like.
he also is welcome to voluntarily propose that if he feels outside of the development process. I know typically we don't see that, but we would see it come in with development.
All right. Thank you for that clarifying note. Any other comments, Commission? I'm happy to entertain a motion. Commissioner Williams.
I move to recommend to City Council approving the rezoning of case number RZ 250001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion to recommend the City Council approve the rezoning? All right, I'm seeing none, so we will cast our votes again. This is the main motion to approve the resolution recommending approval of the zoning change to City Council. All right, congratulations, Mr. Jordan. That passes 5 yeses, 0 noes. Thank you for your time. And thank you again for going through this process and working with your time and money to bring this property into compliance.
And I will work on that sidewalk. I've actually started, I guess okay to talk from here.
You can come to the microphone if you wish to speak more. It would be better to have it all on the record if you wish to say more.
We are in contact with the civil engineer guys, and we're doing the work for 2501 South Kipling. And I'm trying to negotiate a deal where we can get our sidewalk at the same time. We're already talking to them. Now, there will be a gap, or there could be a gap between the new neighborhood going in or houses that could
Right.
possibly going in, and then ours will be Dave's property. But it's a step in the right direction. So we're
Absolutely.
already getting bids on that, working that way. So, because I want a sidewalk too, I want a fence, gate, look at, kind of beautification, the front there. At the same time, obviously, get hooked up to city services. So.
All right, well, we greatly appreciate you going through that effort. And, just up the road of there, of course, on Kipling, we've got Carmody Rec Center, Carmody Park, Carmody Middle School, all destinations that surely attract a lot of pedestrians.
Right.
My daughter goes to Carmody Middle School, so many of her classmates who perhaps walk to school could be grateful for that sidewalk one day. Or maybe, the speed these things go, maybe some future students. But it would be a great improvement to see.
No more mud, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all.
All right, great. Commissioners, it's about 7:44, so we've not been this too long. What is the feeling of rolling into the next case versus taking a 10-minute break? All right, roll along we will. Mr. Rice, please read the next item into the record.
Item 4, case RZ 260001, 7201 West Manfield Avenue. It's a rezoning request.
All right, just like the last case, we will begin this one with a presentation by the applicant. Sir, thank you for coming out tonight. Please begin by stating your name into the record and move into your presentation when you're ready.
Well, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Isaiah Salazar, one of the owners of Academy Park Investors. Academy Park Investors is asking the city to allow this property to evolve from an obsolete office campus into the type of mixed-use and residential infill envisioned by the city comprehensive plan. We're not asking for Planning Commission to approve the final site plan tonight. We're asking for the appropriate underlining zoning so that a future project can move through the city's normal development review process. Academy Park Investors is seeking to rezone the property at 7201, 7301, and 7401 West Mansfield Avenue. The lot is approximately 14.6 acres and is currently part of the Academy Park Plan Development, approved by the city in 1978. Academy Park is seeking to rezone the property to mixed-use general suburban from the current zoning of the Planned Development Mixed-Use Employment Suburban. Our project goals is to rezone the property from the existing PD MES zoning district to the MGS to better align with the city's current zoning framework. We'll provide flexibility for higher quality development. The MGS district provides flexibility in site planning and building design, open space, and circulation, allowing future development to respond to market conditions while remaining consistent with the city standards. So this will also support responsible redevelopment. This will transform an underutilized commercial property into a thoughtfully planned mixed-use community that complements surrounding development and enhances the area. This will also create community benefits and encourage investment that expands housing opportunities, improves pedestrian connectivity, enhances landscape and open space, and increases the long-term tax basis for the city. In reviewing the recently adopted Envision Lakewood 2040 Comprehensive Plan, this comp plan currently places our site as a community hub in the future land use category. The purpose of the community hub's land use category includes some of the following uses: a mixed-use urban, higher density and intensity activity areas, regionally serving destinations that serve local residents, and active and lively places. Examples of some of the community hub landforms include vertical and/or horizontal mixed-use buildings with a ground floor commercial with residential or office above, office, retail, services, hospitality, live work, townhomes, and multifamily housing. The Academy Park Community Hub, as stated in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, provides an opportunity for residential infill and redevelopment of existing underutilized office properties with enhanced multimodal transportation, connections within the hub across Wadsworth and 2 surrounding areas. This is a small snapshot of the Envision Lakewood 2040 mixed use, or 2040 future land use plan. Our site is right here, this big red bubble down below, which highlights a community hub. This is a snapshot of the site location. We are currently the yellow border, and to the west of us is a 13.6 acre site that was recently rezoned in 2019 to MGS. I want to thank you all. To summarize, this property has reached the end of its useful life as the office campus that was envisioned decades ago. The buildings have been removed, and the city's current comprehensive plan identifies Academy Park as a community hub with an opportunity for residential infill. Redevelopment and better multimodal connectivity, MGS gives us the flexibility to pursue that vision while preserving the city's full review of the eventual development plan. Tonight, we are asking Planning Commission to determine that MGS is the appropriate zoning framework for the next generation of this property. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Salazar. I do have some questions for you. So, of course, the case that we are considering tonight is changing the zoning of the property, and we're evaluating that based on the criteria in the code for whether it's appropriate to change the zoning of a property. But when we get rezoning requests, we get kind of a whole spectrum of details sometimes of what might happen if the property is rezoned. So I did note in the packet for this case, your conceptual site plan was a little vague, pretty open-ended, mostly a blank sheet showing the applicable setbacks and noting what land uses are possible. And you alluded to residential, but beyond that, I'm wondering if you can give more insight into at least your current thinking of what could be, what you plan to develop here, number of residential units, commercial space, what that could be like, and anything else you want to do with the site that you can share. And I understand too that your plans can change, and we're evaluating the possibility that any of the allowed uses could go on the site. But it can be helpful for the community to understand what your current thinking is, nonetheless.
Yeah, no, absolutely, fair question. So we purchased this site at the end of 2024, and with the envision of looking at this being a multifamily development at some point in the future. There's been some iterations of different site plans. Our traffic study was built off of envisioning a 336 unit development. Since then, we've looked at tailoring that site down. Right now, I think the future development plan that we might be seeking would be focusing more on the south side of the Warrior Ditch, which is roughly like about 9-10 acres, and looking at doing some form of multifamily development on that site, but probably scaling it down from the 336 unit that the traffic study is currently was designed for and calculated for.
Okay.
And looking at possibly some kind of future use on the 4-acre site to the north of the Warrior Ditch. I have a lot of relationships with some of the local schools there, potentially use it for overflow parking or some future development down the road.
Okay. So at the time, you're not envisioning any uses beyond the 336 residential units, and possibly less than that, you're saying?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Can you comment a little bit on how your envisioned development might affect the layout of the trees on the current site? I was walking around your site this weekend, and it's very fair to say that the nicest thing left on your property is the trees. It's not a high bar because the rest of it's kind of a blank slate and parking lot with weeds in it again. But some of the trees are very nice, especially along Teller Street, especially some of the cottonwoods next to the Warrior Ditch, which was flowing at a very high level, even in this extreme drought year in August. So there's clearly like a lot of water that's gone to those trees for many, many decades to have them in the state they're in. what do you envision to do with this asset you've been gifted on the site of these mature trees?
The plan would be to preserve as much as possible, obviously, especially along the Warrior Ditch easement. Obviously, some of the trees that are within some of the parking islands that currently exist, because other than just the nice trees, we have 2 large parking lots, essentially.
Right.
But the intent is to preserve as much trees as possible, and I know that Kara, our planner, did a tree preservation study as well at some point in the past. So
Okay.
the intent is to preserve as much as possible.
All right, yeah, that's certainly good to hear, and acknowledge. I saw a lot of trees in those small parking islands too, and probably a lot of those have already had their root zone grow beyond the limits of where there's permeable surface for them to thrive with, and so those trees are not doing as well as some of the ones I noted, like along the frontage of the property and next to the ditch. Commissioner Molinar.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask you to, think of some more details here, but you mentioned multimodal connectivity. In the traffic study, I noticed that the emphasis was on cars. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what you are thinking of with your multimodal connectivity?
I'm not sure if I have a great answer for that right now as we look at what the future vision of that, the development could be down the road. But obviously, traffic is a concern with the local schools there. I know that there is somewhat of a pinch point at pickup and drop-offs. Any future development will require some form of traffic improvements on Teller Street and Mansfield. Obviously, there's a detached sidewalk on Teller Street and an attached one on Mansfield, but just trying to make it safe for pedestrians. But we will continue to, evolve and come up with great ideas for multimodal as well.
Thank you. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is also about traffic. Because I saw in the traffic study that the choice was made to have the entrance not on Mansfield, correct?
I don't think that was a choice specifically or a recommendation from city staff, and we will continue to evaluate that. It's something that would be great to see. That's a great entrance off of Mansfield and a left-hand turn into a future site development plan on that site. But it's something that we will continue to analyze.
When you mentioned that you wanted to maybe reduce the number of units and have it mostly on the, south side of the gulch, I thought that maybe that affects where you want to have the entrance.
No,
or have to have the entrance.
Yeah, that original traffic study was based off of looking at a development on both sides of the ditch. So that's why the unit count was so high at that time. Right now, we're just looking at what can we do on that south side of the ditch, more the bigger side of the, call it roughly 10-acre site right now.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm seeing no more questions at this time, Mr. Salazar, but we'll certainly call you back up if some arise later. So thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioners. I also do have members of my civil team that helped with the drainage report and preliminary traffic street construction plans, as well as a member from the traffic study as well here too.
Okay, excellent. That's great to know. We'll have the staff presentation now. Good evening, Ms. Mueller.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kara Mueller, and I am with the Planning Development Assistance Division with the Sustainability and Community Development Department. This presentation is for the Mansfield Teller Academy Park rezoning request, and the case number is RZ 260001. The applicant is requesting approval of a rezoning at 7201 West Mansfield Avenue from the Planned Development PD Zone District that abides by the Academy Park Official Development Plan, with the base zone district of mixed-use employment suburban, MES. They're requesting to rezone to mixed-use general, MGS. The subject site is approximately 14.7 acres in size and is located within the Academy Park Community Hub per the comprehensive plan. The PD zone district does not permit several of the common land uses found within community hub areas and has limitations on retail use as well. The base zone district, MES, does allow for multifamily use. However, it limits it to 50% of the gross floor area. The applicant is requesting this rezoning to MGS to permit the common land uses found in community hubs without the limitations imposed by the current zone district. As you can see here in the vicinity map, the location of the site is in yellow, and it is generally within the Academy Park, and that's located to the southeast of Hampton and Wadsworth. And more specifically, it is located to the west of South Teller, north of West Mansfield Avenue, and to the east of South Wadsworth Boulevard. The property had 3 large office buildings, as the applicant did testify. Those are located, as you can see, on the vicinity in the center of the property. These were recently demolished, and what remains on the site is 2 large parking lots, one to the north, one to the south, and then we have the Warrior Ditch, which kind of bisects the property in this general location north of where the buildings were. The properties to the east have school and sports field uses. Directly to the south is office. To the west is self-storage as well as parking. And to the north is a hotel use, office use, as well as a school building. This is the zoning for the property, and as you can see to the north, the east, we pretty much have the existing zoning that's on this site that is also located in those locations. Directly to the south, we have MES as well as some PD MES, and then to the west, we have mixed-use general suburban. Generally, the rezoning process begins with pre-planning application, and there is a required neighborhood meeting that must occur prior to making a formal application or request for a rezoning. Once staff has evaluated a rezoning request, we'll go ahead and get that scheduled for 2 public hearings. The first before Planning Commission, which is occurring this evening, and then a recommendation would come from Planning Commission to City Council, and they would make all final decisions on rezoning applications. If approved, then any development on this site would need to come in for further review through major site plan process with further civil documents, et cetera, and would need permits in order to build. There was the neighborhood meeting, which was required. That happened earlier this year on January 22nd. And the primary concerns and focus were on certain specific uses, such as adult uses for business, traffic at pickup and drop-off time for the several schools that are off South Teller Street in that location. It is important to point out that per Chapter 5.47 of the Lakewood Municipal Code, adult uses cannot operate within 750 feet of a school and a myriad of other uses. If you were to do a measurement from the school sites to the north, as well as just across the street from South Teller Street, this whole property would fall within that 750 feet. Public notification did occur for this hearing, and that included mailings, posting of the site, publication, as well as posting at the city center. We did receive 1 public comment, and that was on Lakewood Speaks, and it has to do with a SEVA gate that is located at the intersection of Teller and Pierce Street, and school traffic. This was also sent out to 12 agencies, and we did not receive any objections to the rezoning request. The intent of the MG district is really intended to allow for mixed use and community commercial development that can include higher density residential uses as well in the community hub, Higher level of motor vehicle activity is typical. However, pedestrian activity is always encouraged in every location. In contrast to the existing PD and MES zone district, which is intended to provide mostly for office and campus development with ancillary retail and residential uses. Recent rezonings within the Academy Park have removed the PD and the MES zone district. These recent rezonings align with one or more of the common uses within community hubs, such as the MGS zone district. Before you is a use comparison chart for the PD, MES, and the MGS, and highlighted in red are the major differences. And as you can see, you're really seeing a lot of the residential uses now appear on the MGS side. This is a list of the limited and special uses. And again, these must meet supplemental standards. But as you can see, residential uses are limited on the PD, MES side. And it's important to note that adult and once again medical marijuana has spacing requirements per the municipal code that would prevent these uses on this property. This is a chart of the dimensional standards, and there are not a whole lot of differences here, really the side rear setback and a little bit of the build-to zone. What this shows is these differences are minor and will not greatly impact the building form or permissions within the Academy Park or be very different from the surrounding properties. This is a picture of the conceptual land use plan. This typically does accompany rezoning applications, and the property, once again, is within the Academy Park Community Hub. More specifically, on the second sheet, you can see here that the arrows are really showing just the existing access points to the site. The hatched area is really that build-to zone area within the minimum maximum setback along the street frontages, and the blue indicates generally where the Warrior Ditch is located. To the north, there is a very large retaining wall. If you were to go down Jefferson, you would see that retaining wall, so definitely the properties drop off to the north, but this property slopes from the north to the south and generally from the west to the east. And it's important to also point out that there is attached walk that exists for pedestrian access along Mansfield and detached walk that is along South Teller Street. And we would want to also have as good a connections as we can get across the property and through the neighborhood or even just this hub area. So there are 3 rezoning criteria. The first is conformance with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The second is compatibility with surrounding land uses or those envisioned within the comprehensive plan. And then it needs to meet one of the following: promote implementation of the comprehensive plan, or show that there's a material change in the neighborhood or the city at wide to where this rezoning would be a benefit to the public, or C, was it rezoned in error? So the intent of the zoning ordinance is to provide regulations that promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Lakewood. And the proposed rezoning meets the intent by implementing visions and goals of the comprehensive plan, orderly development through a public process, integration of development within surrounding land uses and being compatible with those, promoting mixed use of commercial residential uses within a mixed use zone district, and it could provide for a range of housing types and costs to meet the needs of the citizens in the area and the city at large. The main document for all land use decisions is the Envision Lakewood 2040. Primary document provides your vision, your guiding principles, your goals, and your strategies. This is a clip of the future land use map, and as you can see, and the applicant pointed out, it is in a community hub area, which is further defined within the comp plan as the Academy Park Community Hub, and is generally located here. Is the zoning compatible with the existing surrounding land uses envisioned in the comprehensive plan? The MGS zone district permits uses that are compatible with the surrounding land uses and those envisioned in the common land uses that you would see within a community hub area per the comprehensive plan. Limitations on commercial and residential uses would be removed with the MGS zone district, aligning better with the land uses envisioned in the comprehensive plan. And the suburban context is consistent with the surrounding area and the appropriate context for a mixed-use district. Does the proposed rezoning promote implementation of the comprehensive plan? The MGS zoning is appropriate to provide for the mixed use and higher density residential that the comprehensive plan suggests in this community hub. It is promoted by goals 1, 3, 13, 15, and 19, as well as various strategies as outlined in staff's report. Has there been a material change such that this rezoning would be in the public interest and consistent with the change? There has been a material change in the character of Academy Park over recent years, from an office park with a mix of land uses, including schools, mid-form residential, and high-form residential. The property to the west was recently rezoned in 2019 to MGS, and several other properties within Academy Park have been rezoned to various mixed-use districts and developed as owner-occupied townhomes, multifamily developments, and conversions of buildings to multifamily and school uses. A traffic impact study, preliminary drainage report, and preliminary street construction plans were submitted with the rezoning application. Once again, final engineering plans and public improvements will be required when there is actually a proposal for a site-specific development. Staff finds that the findings of fact and order for the rezoning request as evidenced in this presentation and staff's report are in conformance with the zoning ordinance, compatible with surrounding land uses and land uses envisioned in the comprehensive plan, consistent with the comprehensive plan, and there has been a material change in the Academy Park Community Hub. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopts the findings of fact and order, A through I, as presented in staff's report, and approve a resolution recommending City Council approve rezoning case RZ 26-0001. I thank you, and I and other staff members will be available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. Any questions, commissioners? I will begin with one then. You noted the requirements of the MGS zone district. There's a build-to zone. I believe it's a minimum 10-foot setback and a maximum, was it 80 or 85, something like that, setback. Maximum 85-foot setback. So can you explain for everyone how the build-to zone works? How much of the area within that 10 to 85-foot zone has to be have a frontage of a building within it?
Sure, of course. Great question. So the minimum setback would be 10 feet, and that would be measured as 2 feet off of the back of required public improvements. So if you're on the sidewalk and it's either the existing ones or those change, then you'd go 2 feet past that because we would have an easement. But just to make it clear, that'd be your 0. And then if 10 is your minimum, you could go up to 85 feet from that point. And any building either at 85 feet or within that minimum maximum area would count toward the linear footage that we would calculate for your build-to zone. So if you look here on the screen, you see the MES has a 40%. So basically what we're saying is we'll take the linear frontage of both streets, Mansfield and Teller, and we'll take that, and you need to have at least 40% of that linear frontage needs to have building at or within that minimum maximum setback. And it's 40% for the MES calculation, and as you can see, it's not too much difference. It goes to 45% for the MGS.
Okay. And just thinking about the shape of the property, right? It's
Mhm.
basically mostly a rectangle, right?
Yes.
If you offset 85 feet into the property, I guess both those lines become smaller, right? Because they intersect further in. So the build-to zone is measured along the 0 line, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the applicant mentioned, this is part of why I'm asking all these questions, possibly phasing this. The traffic study that he provided was envisioning, these residential units on both sides of the Warrior Ditch, which splits the site into two pieces, north and south. And so how would the overall build-to zone requirement work with maybe a potentially phased site plan of a development on the south side, like you mentioned, and maybe a future development along the north? Would the initial phase one have to meet the whole 45%, or does that get phased in the site plan somehow?
Typically, we would look at it in the area of disturbance. So if you're doing 2/3 of the site, let's say, to the south of the Warrior Ditch, we would really like to see that meets its build-to zone. And then when the north piece comes in, it could meet the build-to zone. Now, if they wanted to phase a major site plan and say they were going to come in, we could discuss the potential of them showing what they're proposing in the future for the north piece, but they would then need to meet for the entire property on the 2/3 at the beginning.
Okay, so it can be split up, just kind of depending on how they want to phase it. But they would have to make literally no improvements and no disturbance to that piece of the property that they're excluding from that build-to zone calculation. Is that right?
Yeah, and if I could further, we typically, if you're going to phase a major site plan, you really do have an indication of what you're building on the other piece. So we get some idea. Otherwise, we're going to call that the area of disturbance and expect you to meet it on the first part and then meet it with the other building on the second.
Okay. And then I mentioned to the applicant earlier the trees along Teller and Mansfield that are kind of right behind the sidewalk right now. They're very nice trees. They do a good job of providing shade, using the sidewalk a lot more pleasant. I was out there this weekend. I think it was about 98 degrees. The shade felt really good on that particular day, so that's certainly an amenity we'd like to keep. Just given where those trees near the sidewalk are situated, it seems to me, since we start measuring the 85 feet at 2 feet behind the sidewalk, that there's more than enough room to preserve most of those trees and still have a building that meets somewhere close enough to the sidewalk to meet the build-to zone requirement. Would you agree with that? Just kind of rough assessment of me looking at the site.
Sure. We did do a tree preservation walk, so I've seen all the trees and been everywhere on the site. Right now, we have an attached walk that's along Mansfield.
Right.
We'll have to see what proposals do come in. I think the trees that exist where the detached walk is, kind of a lot of them are on the western side of the walk in this particular case.
In towards the site.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll take a look at those. We do believe they are nice trees. And if there's a way to work with those and any future public improvement requirements, then, there may be some alterations to how a walk's put in. Maybe we keep an attached walk along Mansfield. All these things have been kind of preliminary discussions if something comes in, but we'll really just need to evaluate it when it does come through.
Okay. But conceptually, it could work to say
conceptually, yes.
Yeah, and still meet the build-to and other dimensional requirements of the zone district.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. If you haven't noticed, preserving some of those trees would be pretty important to me.
Yes.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll move into public comment since the staff presentation is done. As staff mentioned, there is one comment online, so thank you to that commenter. And we have 4 people signed up to speak to this case. So the first one is Todd Kirchner.
Good evening. My name is Todd Kirshner. I live in Lakewood, Colorado. My address is 10957 West Bear Creek Drive, and I'm a proud parent of 2 students at Addenbrooke Classical Academy. I want to make clear that my concern related to this project is not opposing any rezoning or redevelopment. Rather, my concern is whether this particular development can be safely accommodated by the existing transportation network, and most importantly, whether it can be done without compromising the safety of the children, pedestrian, and over 1,000 students and families who use the already congested South Teller corridor every school day. A couple years ago, we had a student that was hit in the crosswalk at South Teller and Mansfield, so I want to make sure that no pedestrian or child is placed in an unsafe traffic situation to discover that the existing or future infrastructure is inadequate. I did look on the website for a traffic study. I did not see that traffic study. So a lot of my concerns are related to the traffic study. It sounds like a traffic study has been done, but has it been conducted and modeled the development with the South Teller and South Pier connection remaining closed to ordinary public traffic? And if this gate remains closed, where exactly will the additional traffic go during school arrival and dismissal? If you go to Denver Christian or Addenbrook Academy from 6:30 to 8 in the morning, it's backed up all the way to Mansfield, and we cannot get out because there's a gate, so it significantly limits traffic patterns. So I would like to see that addressed. Has the fire department evaluated emergency response time to all schools under the projected post-development school dismissal traffic conditions, especially with South Teller being a dead-end street? Has the fire department demonstrated that emergency vehicles can quickly and reliably reach both schools when South Teller is already congested? What happens if an emergency vehicle needs to use South Teller while parents are picking up children or during a school lockdown? Southbound Teller Street going into Addenbrook Classical Academy essentially transitions from a 2-lane road to a 1-lane road due to residents not relocating their cars during certain hours, making the already significant congestion problem due to the locked gate significantly worse. Will the developer be required to pay for upgrades or any pedestrian sidewalks or crosswalks to minimize impacts of traffic and to ensure safety of pedestrians and students caused by the project? If the project is approved, I would recommend no residential building should be receive a certificate of occupancy until every transportation and safety improvement identified by the city traffic engineer and fire authority as necessary for this project has been completed. From a community and traffic flow point of view, I think it's very ridiculous why the convergence of South Teller and South Pier Street is a dead end unless this is a private street. If this intersection is a public street paid by tax dollars, this gate should be removed. As a result, city approval and physical removal of the gate, locked gate, should be required and a condition for the approval of this development. Will the planning department commit tonight that the city will not approve or issue building permits for this development until the public and neighboring schools have seen a current project-specific transportation and student safety study demonstrating that South Teller and South Pier and the surrounding school corridor can safely accommodate the project, specifically while the South Teller and South Pierce gate remains closed to ordinary traffic, significantly impacting traffic flow? Thank you for your time and service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirchner. Our next speaker who has signed up is Mr. Ed Peterson.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ed Peterson. I live at 845 South Carr Street in Lakewood, Colorado, and I also have the privilege to serve on the Board of Directors for Addenbrook Classical Academy. And I'm here this evening, first of all, to start my comments and echo some of the concerns that were expressed by the individual that preceded me in my address to you all. Having said that, however, I also want to express the fact that we support the basic rezoning as currently proposed, with the few caveats that were actually articulated very well by my previous member of our family, the Addenbrook family. We would like to explore other opportunities now that the applicant has started discussions and started planning processes, separating this property to the north of the ditch and then to the south of the ditch. Our high school exists to the north of the ditch, and in his presentation he mentioned that they might have a possible consideration of an educational facility at that point, at which point in time we would like to open up discussions with the developer along those lines as an opportunity for both partners. I do believe that the current rezoning that's before you does support the 2040 comprehensive plan for the city of Lakewood and does bring this particular property in compliance with the intent of that particular feature, with some concerns and with open communication between the developer and ourselves, as well as Colorado Christian, who is also a school that is directly impacted by this development. I think we can create a wonderful opportunity for our families. We have approximately 1,000 students, and also increase the affordability for housing within the city of Lakewood, and add additional jobs in commercial as the intent is put forth by the 2040 plan. With me this evening, I also have our executive director, and I'm going to ask if he can go ahead and take whatever time I have left to address you. Again, we support this zoning change with those particular caveats and with those questions as proposed by my previous speaker. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson. I believe we typically do request to pool time at the outset of the meeting. Apologies if you weren't aware of that, but he'll have his 3 minutes, and yeah.
I don't think he can talk for longer.
All right. So Mr. Bill Coffenstedt.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Bill Cottonstead, and I live at 4414 South Johnson Court in Littleton, Colorado, but serve as the executive director of Addenbrook Classical Academy, which is in the neighbor to the area that is being proposed. We're a public charter school, as Ed mentioned, serving roughly 1,000 students in grades pre-K through 12th grade across 2 campuses next door to the proposed development. I'm speaking tonight to express my excitement about the opportunity. Responsible planning will bring meaningful economic and residential vitality, making this an even more vibrant community for families and children. To ensure the opportunity for seamless integration into the neighborhood, we ask that the specific plans address 2 primary areas of concern. As noted earlier, traffic and allowable commercial uses. Regarding traffic, specifically we want to call out the West Mansfield Avenue and South Teller Street intersection. Volume here is already problematic, particularly during peak school arrival and departure hours. Adding new units will exacerbate this bottleneck unless the intersection is updated to accommodate higher traffic flow, maintains ready emergency vehicle access, and accounts for the pedestrian traffic, including foot and bicycle traffic. On South Teller Street and South Pierce Way, as noted earlier, there's a gate blocking proper traffic flow. Opening this gate and making necessary adjustments will improve community access, reduce pedestrian and vehicular accident risk, and give emergency vehicles timely access to the area. And second, regarding commercial uses, with over 1,000 students directly adjacent to this site, certain allowable mixed-use businesses are fundamentally incompatible with the school zone. Specifically, we request that adult businesses, marijuana establishments, and pawn brokerages be restricted from operating in such close proximity to our students, as would be consistent with Municipal Code 5.47040, 5.51040, and 5.24460. We're relying on the enforcement of the Lakewood Municipal Code in those instances. Thanks for your time and leadership and thoughtful consideration. We're excited for the work ahead and look forward to staying engaged to help support this development.
Thank you, Mr. Cottonstead. Commissioner Carius has a question for you. If you could stay here, please.
I have to know, now that this gate has come up multiple times and I can see it on the map, do you know who owns this gate? Why this gate exists?
I have a little bit of insight into that, but just a little.
Well,
Hi there, staff can answer that.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Dunn.
Yeah, hi, Kelly Dunn with our Transportation Engineering Division. We get the question about the gate a lot, so I'd like to give some history here. The city agrees as well. We would like to have that gate opened. However, the right-of-way there for Pierce Street is City and County of Denver. Denver has continually denied our request to have our public right-of-way connect to their public right-of-way. Staff has tried many times over the years, staff talking to staff, directors to directors over there, elected officials to elected officials, and it has been continually denied. So although Lakewood would like to open that gate to alleviate some of that traffic congestion, we have been unable to do so despite our efforts.
What's Denver's issue with not wanting to open the gate?
Presumably the amount of new traffic that it would add on Pierce Street there. There is a 1970-something ODP for Academy Park, which did call out no access to Pierce Street, so they continue to point to that, whereas staff's interpretation is that so much has changed in that area that those restrictions on that ODP may no longer be relevant. But at this point, we have not been successful in getting that gate to be open due to Denver.
Okay, and commissioners, I see a few more lights on. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Cottonstead here or for staff? Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I do have more questions about the gate for staff later, but I won't subject you to those. My question for you in terms of Addenbrooke Classical Academy, it sounds like there are some traffic challenges and some transportation challenges there that are existing. And, you know, gate aside, I'm curious, has the school, does Addenbrooke provide any kind of additional transportation services to students, buses, yellow bus, you know, can students take a bus, a public school bus, that kind of thing, to school, or are you solely reliant on parent drop-off at that location?
Currently, we are reliant on parent drop-off, but it is like transportation expansion is something that I'm looking at, and I think it's just a matter of, I'm new, so
Sure.
Learning how to figure that out, but finding ways to do that is something that I'm looking at. I think where there would be some logistics involved is just figuring out how to secure the vehicles, the routes that we would run, and having places where we can do drop-off and pick-up. So I think that's work that could be done, that I think could be helpful, but it will also involve then running the buses into that space and figuring out, making sure that we can access those locations properly.
Great, thank you.
All right, yeah, I'll have a follow-up too, sir. I guess typically at charter schools like Addenbrooke and private schools like Denver Christian, one observes a much higher rate of parent drop-off as the means of students getting to school as opposed to something like a school bus or students walking or biking. Is there a fraction of the students that walk or bike or arrive by some other means by parent drop-off, or is that not really a thing? Is this these kind of campuses almost exclusively like parent drop-off just due to the nature of where the students are coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I'll learn more about, so I can take that question back with me as I learn more about the families in the area. I do believe there is some level of pedestrian traffic that comes to the school. Personally, myself, I'm riding my bike right now, and so I'm learning the routes and figuring out how to get there. The hills are pretty steep in that area, so I think that might be a limiting factor. But we do have families currently that are coming from a wide range. I think the calculation I did on it is about 90 to 95% come within a 15-minute drive radius, but that extends pretty far out to north of 6th Avenue, into Denver, into Sheridan. So oftentimes that does require a level of personal transportation.
Yeah, that's just good context to have. Thank you. I'm seeing no more questions for you at this time, so we may have more follow-up on the issues we raised, though, with staff. So thank you for coming and raising those issues.
Thank you.
The next speaker who signed up is Summer Cordova.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Summer Cordova. I am actually a Denver resident, but I do have children that go to Addenbrooke Classical Academy in Lakewood. And hearing some of the questions, comments, concerns, and things kind of fluctuated a bit of what I wanted to share. And I do want to say I really, really appreciate the open dialogue that's happening right now between everyone, because this is a pain point that we've been working on for years. My kids have been at Addenbrooke this will be our 11th year. So before the giant apartment was there, before there was a retirement community there, before there was a row of townhomes there, before both us and Denver Christian grew to 1,000 students each. So this has been an ongoing growth issue. Right now, the traffic as is without this development is not tenable. It's not safe, it's not comfortable. I will tell you that a lot of the pedestrian traffic that is occurring is because we don't want to sit in the car line. There's only one in and one out for elementary and a middle school because of the gate. I know the gate's an issue. I know a lot about that. So what we end up doing is, I have a high schooler as well, so to the other side of the property. So I park down by the high school. I walk up to get my little kids, and we walk back down. So a lot of the pedestrian traffic are parents parking along the Denver Christian sidewalk or that area, walking to get our kids and walk back. And I will tell you, I have a 7th grader who could perfectly well walk my kids down and I could wait, but it's not safe. I do not feel comfortable with my kids crossing the walks. There's no stoplights. There's a ton of traffic. It's really, really scary. So as it is right now, something's got to change. And I have been in communication with transportation engineers with Lakewood to help get the stoplight at Mansfield and Wadsworth adjusted, because we were backing up traffic onto a 3-lane road where Wadsworth is. You guys, it was insane. It was scary. People were like honking and trying to hit each other. It was wild. Anyway, I had a lot of luck working with the Lakewood side of things. The Denver side of things has not been so easy. And I told you I'm a Denver resident. And I tried to use that as well, because Kevin Flynn, who's the council member who is so protective of this gate, is my councilman. He doesn't want to talk to me. So I would love it if all of us could put our heads together and figure out how to make this work for everybody. I really honestly think that I love the ideas. I love seeing those built. We had a lot of fun watching the demolition too as we walked. It was really exciting. But seeing that revitalized would be great. You know, I think that the community, if we all work as a team, we could do great things. And I think our staff, our executive director, like, we're willing to do the work. Our parents are willing to do petitions. We'll do whatever it takes to get the gate open, to get access points, to make it safer for everyone. And I still can't figure out how, because if I understand correctly, part of that road is Lakewood owned and part of it's Denver owned. I get that access point is Denver. And from what I understand, that was only allowed as an emergency access, but it's never used in an emergency. We've been stuck in car line for hours. If an emergency vehicle has to get to the school, they've never once opened that gate, ever, in the history of it being there. So that is a total cop-out to me, and I actually, frankly, is pretty frustrated.
All right.
Because they'll just pass the buck. They'll say it's Lakewood's fault because they built so much.
All right, well, thank you for your comments. We have 2 questions from commissioners for you. We'll start with Commissioner Carius.
Hi. So I'm just trying to get a sense of the pickup drop-off situation. We do have the traffic study. We specifically asked for it, knowing that's usually a concern around these things. I think my question is kind of, so it sounds like most people are coming off of Wadsworth, turning to Mansfield, and then kind of looping back South Teller, and then looping up over to Jefferson, probably back out to Wadsworth. Is that kind of the...
Either to Jefferson or to Mansfield. Most traffic will take a left onto Mansfield from the 4-way stop. And at that 4-way stop, you have Denver Christian to the east, and our campus is southeast.
Gotcha.
So if that makes sense.
Because there's the...
And part of part of that congestion is because of those 2 schools meet right there.
Mm-hmm. And then I think one of the things that's coming up for me is, like, I don't have many options, and you know, I care about the fact that you're dropping off your kids and picking up kids and everything, but the question before us is to change it to a mixed general suburban zoning, which is inherently built into its measure auto-oriented. And when traffic studies come to us, their focus is on moving cars through those spaces faster. Sure. It's not caring about pedestrians. Yes, there's pedestrian markers there, and the general pedestrian safety will be expected of any improvements made. But this is where the conflict comes in of, like, we can either move cars faster, or we can make those pedestrian protections and everything else that makes it go along a lot better like I guarantee there's probably a design that the city could come up with and install there, but it's going to make driving through that neighborhood slower and different. And then it makes me question, is MGS actually the best zoning? Because this section is very suburban right now.
Right.
And what we're creating is essentially a funnel of cars, a funnel of vehicles who want to move fast and get through the particularly parents who may be running late to work and dropping off kids.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at how do you think we should be looking at this balance?
I mean, I guess I would be curious, what time of day did this traffic study occur?
It covers all times of day.
So all times of day.
Yeah, when a traffic
So
study
the
is
traffic
submitted
study
to us,
approves that even for this
it looks
3
at,
p.m. time?
It even specifically included peak school times.
Okay.
So it's looking at nighttime, daytime, business hours, all the different things, and then ties specifically to types of units. And then, as the previous presenter already talked about, they reduced the total number of residential units. That would be even less than the traffic study concluded. So that's why I'm like, we're essentially setting ourselves up for failure, regardless of what we approve.
Right.
That's my big concern. I just want to air that out to everybody.
Yeah, I think
because
that's
that's where
fair.
traffic is a big concern.
Yeah.
But right now, approved or not approved,
What are we
we're
gonna do?
setting ourselves up for failure.
It's already a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Molinar.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us an insight what it looks like. And you mentioned that it's very scary where the kids walk. And you mentioned the gate a couple times, so we're going to get into the gate more. But in your opinion, is removing the gate the solution, or is it a part of the solution?
I think it could be a big part of the solution, just because it would offer an additional exit point from all the traffic that's entering into that area. And I understand the concern is there are some influential people in the neighborhood. Okay, cool. Like there's a golf course there. I've been told that adding traffic to Pierce would be unsafe. I don't really see how that would be the case. Or that, what did he tell me? It was not built to handle that much traffic. I don't really know what that means, but if we had the ability, even if it was just open during school, like the drop-off pickup times, it would alleviate the need to circle back. If we could have traffic line come in this way, exit on Pierce, go to Quincy. It would be super simple. And to your point, I don't know that it would be the absolute solution, but I think it would help a lot.
Thank you.
All right, I'm seeing no more questions, so thank you for your time and coming out and
Thank you
expressing your
guys so
concerns.
much. I
Ms.
appreciate
Cordova.
y'all.
Absolutely. Are there any other people who are present tonight who would like to speak on this case? I see the first sir in the back there. Come on down. All right, please state your name and for the record your address or what part of town you're in.
You bet. Name is Brant Epperhart, Director of Finance at Denver Christian School. So I would like to say we're excited about the neighborhood being developed. There is an issue around the homeless community, and we've kind of battled that. I am very much in support, Denver Christian is very much in support of what Addenbrook has talked about tonight related to the gate and the traffic. We have a great relationship with Addenbrook and have even staggered our pickup and drop-off times as best we can to help accommodate the issues in the neighborhood. We are excited to see the area continue to be developed. That's some of our plans in the future, which the staff are aware of. So just wanted to acknowledge that this is real. I want to substantiate it from our community, and we're working hard in the area with both Addenbrook, Colorado Academy, and the developing folks around us. So it is absolutely an issue, and if I can help in any way answer questions from our perspective, I'd be happy to do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Epperhart.
You bet.
I actually was going to have a question for you. I got excited when I learned you were from Denver Christian because I wanted to ask you or your counterparts at Addenbrook if pickup and drop-off times have been staggered. You said you've already done that. That's wonderful. So we've already taken that simple step to stop this issue from being even worse. Commissioner Williams, do you have a question for Mr. Epperhart?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Same question as for the other school administrator. Does Denver Christian School?
Yes, sir.
Denver Christian School, do you provide any kind of bus service or transportation service to your students?
We do. Yeah, so we have several bus routes that run out and come back morning and afternoon. Students beyond the kind of 15-minute drive or whatnot that we bus in and bus out, and that's helpful for sure. But it is a growing, in a private school setting, you attract students from all over, just like the neighboring charter and private next to us, and so by nature of that, you are going to get a higher population of driver. And we do a lot around carpooling. We do a ride out only at certain times to send traffic away from the Addenbrook congestion, Denver Christian Addenbrook congestion. So we're doing a lot to try to combat that. We have our security folks out there on Pierce Street trying to move people along. But I will tell you that having that gate open would significantly improve the issues in the area. And so one other data point, this goes back a decade, the site that we bought that we've now developed had a right-in, right-out drive lane onto Pierce previously. It's right where our football field and track are at now. And I proposed to staff if there was some way that we could get City and County of Denver Councilmember Flynn in the room and say there was previously a right-in, right-out. It was 12-ish years ago. If we could apply that to essentially the top of Mansfield, I think that would answer nearly all of our concerns presently. I don't know what all the development plans are. I'm excited that it's being developed. I think it's fantastic. But there is absolutely a real traffic issue.
All right. Thank you for emphasizing that once again. No other questions for you, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Did anyone else want to speak who had not signed up? Come on down, sir. And again, please state your name.
Todd Kirshner.
You spoke earlier.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
I just want to make sure the commission understands that on Pierce Street, what's happening now is people are parking on the side of the road all along Pierce Street, which is forcing children to go across the street that people drive pretty fast. There's no sidewalks. So that is a safety concern right now.
Yes, sir.
So I think Denver's comments about traffic, there's already traffic on that street because parents are using it. Thank you.
Commissioner Carius has a question for you, sir.
It's mostly just staff because they'll know the answer.
Okay, so you
South
can go ahead.
Pierce, that's Denver's road, correct?
The southern end of it, north of Quincy, after it realigns a bit further to the north, that's where it gets back into City of Lakewood limits. But basically, any frontage along Addenbrook and the section of Denver Christian is City and County of Denver.
Okay, you said Quincy is where it returns to us?
I'm sorry, Ms. Dunn, can you repeat? Clearly, what's Denver's and what's Lakewood's?
Pierce Street north of Quincy is Denver, and then all along the apartment frontages, Addenbrook frontage, Denver Christian School frontage, and then right after it finishes its squiggle north of Mansfield, that's where it gets back into the City of Lakewood.
Okay, yeah, that's significantly north of the gate that we've been talking about. I see. Okay. Yeah, Ms. Dunn, while you're speaking and thinking of this, we've heard several issues expressed. Of course, this gate. We heard Mr. Kirchner express that there was a student hit in traffic several years ago near South Teller and Mansfield. Can you comment on any efforts that the city's traffic operations team has undertaken with respect to managing the school traffic flow in this area, and maybe what actions were taken after that crash involving the student?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that chance. And we are aware and we do acknowledge that there is significant congestion at these intersections, Mansfield and Teller, and then also Mansfield and Wadsworth. So over the years, we have taken multiple efforts. Both schools have been great to collaborate with. So as mentioned, there was work done to stagger the start times, delay the start times. The city made improvements to the Mansfield and Teller intersection to put in slip lanes so that traffic could free flow and queue less. The city has worked with the school to do some changes for their exit to pull back so that there's better sight distance so that vehicles can exit more quickly and have that queuing move through faster. So, it's almost every year when school starts that we take another look at this and we see what we can tweak. But ultimately, there are more vehicles going through there than those intersections can handle. I know one of the public commenters mentioned a traffic signal for safe crossing. That would actually be detrimental, although it might be a green light for a while to flush folks into the school. Any sort of red signal to allow the cross traffic would just exacerbate that queuing. That might queue back onto Wadsworth. So we, at this point, we also agree with the comments we're hearing here. Opening up that gate and having access to Pierce Street is really what would alleviate the congestion here.
All right. This is maybe a dangerous round of questioning for me to go down. But this whole gate scandal we are talking about here now, it reminds me a lot. There was an item in the news about a month ago where the town of Bomar, a little bit south of here, wanted to put up gates, and the city and county of Denver's mayor spoke adamantly about it on the grounds that, hey, Bomar, you have public streets and people from other cities have a right to travel through them. I don't travel through Bomar myself much, so I didn't have a dog in my fight, but it's like, in terms of sentiment and philosophy, I kind of agreed with the Denver mayor in that case, what he was saying in public. Yeah, I mean, public roads, people travel through neighboring cities all the time, and we have a right to travel in public right-of-way. That's what public right-of-way is for. I find it deeply ironic to know that Denver is blocking Lakewood traffic into their city here in this case. I don't know if there's anything with that angle that we can use to twist some arms and persuade in Denver, but it certainly seems to me to be an inconsistency in Denver's position if they are adamant about keeping this gate. Has that come up at all?
I see the similarities. We as staff have not put two and two together. That said, maybe the difference in this situation is that there is the original Academy Park ODP, which does call out that there will be no access to Pierce Street. So
right.
In this case, Denver might have a little bit more of a foothold than the Bomar example.
Yeah. So here's a rabbit hole to go down. Why in 1978 did the ODP have that restriction on the Academy Park traffic exiting out to Pierce there? Is there any traffic study or documentation from the original Academy Park development almost 5 decades ago that says something about the volumes that could have been anticipated with the office development that was being built new in that day? And I would wonder how that compares to the traffic today with a lot of these uses changes. A lot of office buildings are gone. We have new residential in there. We're talking with this rezoning about potentially new residential. We didn't have schools there 50 years ago. There's been all these changes. The traffic characteristics that justified that gate 50 years ago are probably very different now. Has there been any discussions that you've had with Denver about that aspect of things and how that might play into what Denver's position is?
I have not seen a traffic study from 1978 with that original ODP, but to your point, yes, that's how the city is perceiving this, is that things have changed and developed differently in this area. The roadway network is different. So we feel that basically those ODP restrictions are probably under a different scenario at that time than they're operating today. Many times staff has brought this forward to Denver. As mentioned, it's been escalated to elected officials, and we have continually been given a hard no from Denver.
Okay. We have a lot of questions here. I think Commissioner Holman was first.
Thank you, Chair. So what I'm hearing from everyone seems to be in support of the rezoning, but also raising an ongoing issue about the traffic flow, and it seems like this gate is a large part of the problem there. Ms. Dunn, you mentioned a traffic light would not be feasible. For West Mansfield and South Teller, would a traffic circle be a better option to keep traffic flowing?
It would not, but I like the way you're thinking. Essentially, the issue is that we're queuing. So, parents are coming, stacking up. They're waiting for arrival or dismissal. So they're queuing back off the schools' sites and then onto the public roadways. So to your point, a roundabout, I think we would just see folks queued in a circle and back up the side street. But a solution that we would see is to be able to move some of that queuing on site. So the city, we have been working with Brand over at Denver Christian, and we've discussed potentially if there's ways that they can bring more queuing onto their site, and that would help reduce some of that backing up onto the public roadways. So those are some of nothing is finalized yet, but those are some discussions that we've been having to move some of those vehicles off the public roadway.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting the creativity that we come up with when there's a gate in our way. Regarding the traffic issue, so I think when the site plan comes along, we'll have a bit more leverage, I believe, to kind of have the developer contribute to options for improving traffic. For the rezoning, I don't know if we have that ability. But yeah, I did notice that West Mansfield and South Teller looks not safe at all. Looks very dangerous to me. And then hearing that a child was hit breaks my heart. That is terribly sad. And I think the slip lanes are potentially like a contributor to the danger at this intersection. I would just love to see improvements to the intersection and traffic flow. And then also with the gate, yeah, I guess you were saying that every year discussions are had. I'm just wondering, what options do we have really for working with Denver to get that gate open? Do we have, like, it sounds like all of their reasoning for keeping the gate closed is relatively arbitrary. So, like, is there any legal action that we could take? And maybe this is a question for legal about what options we have for pursuing an option to get that gate open if their reasoning doesn't seem sound.
So there's certainly, I mean, it might be ill-advised, but, you know, there is certainly some options where, you know, we could try to bring a cause of action to, I don't know, vacate that provision of the ODP, or, you know, see if the two sides can come together. I think those are kind of nuclear options usually, because if we're going to initiate litigation against one of our, you know, neighboring jurisdictions, that's, yeah, obviously, I know that we've tried a lot of other things, but I don't know that that would be necessarily advisable. Another thing, you know, I know some of the boundaries are a little bit, you know, when we get to the sort of the east side of our city, the boundary with Denver, there are various places where it kind of comes in and out. I know over the years there were discussions on both sides about, you know, annexations and, you know, what side would take what, and that's evolved over time. I think we're kind of at a place where neither side is really going to cede ground and say, like, sure, you can annex in this part to try to delineate this boundary better, or we'll annex this. So I don't know that that's really a viable option either. So I think, you know, I think if we've escalated it to the elected officials, that's about as high as we go typically. Maybe there could be a grassroots campaign or something like that will get their attention, perhaps. But I don't know that taking any legal action is something that the city would be in the position to pursue.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. The one thing that was mentioned as a reason for keeping it closed was emergency access, and I doubt that it's been used for emergency access that much, but the one thing that does bring concern to me is fire escape routes, given the increasing danger of wildfires. If that gate is closed, I mean, adding any amount of time could be very dangerous for people in a fire escape. And oh, it looks like you want to say something?
If I may.
Yeah.
The gate is actually a service and emergency vehicle gate, so fire department has access to that gate. They can pull up to it, and they have the ability to open that gate. It's just not open to standard traffic. So if there was an emergency, they can pull up. They do have the ability to open it. It was put in place for service and emergency vehicle access only.
Okay, so the fire department could open it, but all the residents trying to use the road up until then would not be able to use it?
Yes, because the gate would be locked. Otherwise, it would just be an open intersection, which is what everybody's hoping will happen at some point.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the challenges around this gate that we certainly were not, I mean, we're going to solve this in the next hour, right? But definitely excited to think about some additional solutions. I think I've a thought and a question for staff. One thing I just want to sort of level set with is the question in front of us is not about what will happen on this property, but what we will be rezoning the property to. And I recognize that probably everyone in this room understands that, but I think it's important to level set for the public that like that's what we are discussing, not whatever the future plans will be for the property. My thought with this is that like if there is additional mixed use development and housing that does eventually go into this property, it does sound like there's already transportation issues and we may need to think about those transportation issues look like. I suspect that that will require buy-in from all of the various stakeholders, there's a hospital, it looks like, multiple schools, as well as, of course, city interests as well. If there's a way to collaborate between the different schools, if we have two schools, it sounds like Denver Christian School is already providing transportation. Maybe there's partnership opportunity with Addenbrook. Maybe there are other ways that we can provide that. I think one of the issues we're running up against here is that the reality is that you can only fit so many cars into one place at a time, right? That's just the reality. So there's going to be no solution here in terms of how to accommodate more cars in a limited land use environment, regardless of what happens with this property in the future. I mean, you could make it one single family home with a ginormous lot and you'd still would not alleviate the current transportation issues, right? So there is a more macro problem that we're dealing with here. That is the reliance on this entire area on vehicles instead of additional transportation options like transit, buses, bikes, etc. Another thing we're not going to solve in the next hour. My question for staff is that when I look at the, Google Earth, right, which, thanks for your going with me on this journey, but there is a small access, what appears to be a small access road that is a dirt road directly north of the track that belongs to Denver Christian School between there and Slater Field. Do we know what is that private property or is that owned by one of the schools? Do we have an answer to that? Do we know? Does anybody know? CA. It is CA. Yeah. Is right here.
No, so there's another school over there, so it's not.
Yeah, someone in the audience shouted out CA, I think that's referring to, that belongs to Colorado Academy.
That is not currently in the room with us. Got it.
Right.
I ask because it appears as if I'm curious from what I understand from Department of Transportation, that connects to Pierce at a location that is within Lakewood. What's preventing us from putting an additional access point there?
That is a separate property that is not involved in these discussions tonight, but to your point, that would be a stakeholder in alleviating congestion in this area.
It just seems like maybe there are a couple of options here, and this body is not like really in the position to be able to untangle all of that, but it does seem like there are potential solutions here, and in my perspective, those potential solutions can be worked out with the various stakeholders that they're responsible for, and I don't see that necessarily as like a reason to deny a rezoning request from a private property owner who's trying to do that and fit within our comprehensive plan and all these other things. So I want to just like really express a lot of sympathy with the traffic challenges, and I don't want to leave the public with the impression that I or we are not concerned about that, right? But we also need to recognize that we may need to get creative with some of these solutions because unless we can eliminate parent drop-off, right, like that is not going to solve, that is what would solve this really, right? So how can we come up with some of these additional solutions? Are there opportunities for some of these schools to collaborate further? It sounds like most of those relationships are pretty good. And then hopefully continue discussions with the city of Denver. But I was curious about that access point, and it seems like that could be another potential solution.
Commissioner Carius.
Yeah. I didn't expect this to go on so long, but clearly there's a gate in the way. I want to get back to the zoning specifically, and maybe this goes to staff or whoever made the decision on this. Why was MGS chosen specifically? Was that just based on the surrounding uses also being similar to MGS, and therefore we continue to make MGS the standard use across this area? Because it sounds like, as kind of Topher kind of alluded to, we need to look to alternative urban design strategies or alternative zoning strategies to kind of start transitioning the area, especially being hemmed in by a golf course and, you know, other space on the other side. It's almost like time to transition out of MGS, and now we're about to transition another property into MGS. And I'm wondering, is that even appropriate at this point? Because it sounds like the neighborhood has moved beyond MGS as a standard because we're maxing out that type of capacity, which is dependent on cars, the auto-centric focus.
Thank you for the question. Really, when we're looking at the land use and in the zoning components, so the MG, which is the mixed use general, when we're talking about zoning, we're going to look for the zone district that can allow for the uses that we think are appropriate. And per the comprehensive plan, there is a list of common land uses. All of those do fall to the MG, and if you were to take a step up from the ME, you would be in that general context. I do hear what you're saying as far as you've got transportation and vehicle concerns that are in this particular area. But again, we're talking about land use, and every time that we'll look at any project that comes through to be proposed on a property, we will ask for the analysis of traffic, because if it develops 5 years from now, maybe the gate's open, maybe the gate's not open, as an example, or other things have changed within the area, and those numbers all need to fall in place as well with any proposal. So just because something is allowed, maybe the number of units needs to balance out with the number of vehicles and trips that would occur within an area. So MG does feel appropriate for the Academy Park and the community hub area.
Is that, so MG is the one that was selected, ME was the alternative that was considered?
ME is the base district that exists currently that has limitations on residential use. So
Gotcha.
Really just looking to remove the two limitations. The PD has a limitation on retail, doesn't really allow for the residential component, but the base district, if you were to build under that, has a 50% gross floor area limitation on residential context. So really looking to kind of remove those limitations and open up the ability to look at the land uses and all of those that are listed for a community hub.
Okay, and then what about, say, like an MGU or an MGT alternative to the MGS?
Okay, so the difference there will not affect the traffic necessarily. So the three contexts, suburban, urban, and transit, really speak to the dimensional standards and how close buildings need to be brought to the street, where parking can be laid out, et cetera. So we're still, we already have public sidewalks that flank this property. And with any proposal, we'll look at the tree locations, we'll look at our standards for detached walks and have a discussion on possibly being able to preserve those trees, et cetera, with locations of public walks. But for the most part, the transit is just oriented toward being in kind of a more dense area around light rail stations. The urban is a little bit more pedestrian oriented by bringing the buildings to the street, but this is not void of having pedestrian access or still wanting to have those connections with any development.
Yeah, so that's where I'm getting at, I think specifically, is I think particularly the MGU, where we're looking at enhanced pedestrian connectivity, safety, bringing those buildings closer to the street in order to kind of enclose the space psychologically for drivers, encourage them driving slower through the section. MGT as well, there's opportunity. You have the major bus stop on the 76 just off of Wadsworth. That could be improved as well in the future. You have connections to the 35 and a park and ride that goes east-west across there as well. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, even though we said, it's just the design standards, we are choosing those design standards for the property now. MGS would be encouraging types of design standards that kind of encourage faster driving through the neighborhood, that encourage the type of auto-oriented uses that encourage faster driving, but also more people just driving in general. So did we consider MGU as an alternative, which would still allow them to get the use out of the property that they're looking for, or an MGT, whichever one is better for, the land use at the time?
So not transit, because transit is pretty clear that that's intended to be in your highest transit areas where you actually have stops and you have the light rails. Urban is also typically found in certain corridor areas, but along arterial roadways such as Wadsworth and in the proximity of that for the Academy Park, it has been historically a more suburban context area.
Okay, so we essentially were dependent upon existing uses for determining the future use of this, instead of considering what could be best for the future.
Not uses, it's more looking at the building in the context of the area versus uses, because uses is one thing. You can still have MG and have all the context in various areas of the city, but this area along Wadsworth is mostly the ability to get there right now is to be in a vehicle or be bused or what have it. There are some stops along Wadsworth in the area, but it is not highly a context area that exists currently of multimodal. Does that mean we won't look at that with a suburban context? Of course, we'll still push for that. I do understand the comment about bringing buildings closer to the street and people have a perception of slowing down. But we did just look at the context of the area and being in proximity to Wadsworth, Quincy, as an area that is more suburban.
And Commissioner Carius, looking at the zoning code as a whole, we have the different districts. They're kind of scale. So neighborhood implies something smaller. The general is more dense, and then the core, you find at your where the light rail stops, and then you have context, suburban, urban transit. If you zoom, I mean, if the applicant requested MGU, I think we would support it in this location. It's out of context. If you zoom out a little bit and look at the Academy Park as a development as a whole, it's Wadsworth and 285. And it is a suburban development pattern. And then that's what we've applied throughout the city. What you're asking, could we do MGU? The answer is yes, where we've recommended in S context. It's consistent with the development pattern. There is one development there. I think we went with an MRS. It was a townhome developer. They were looking at, and that's what they wanted to do. They didn't want commercial of any way, shape, or form, smaller, and so the zoning request was for that MRS designation. If the developer or a developer was looking at this site for retail use, some type of commercial use, we wouldn't be having this discussion this evening. That's allowed under the MES, and so it would be an administrative approval, and Kelly and her team would be looking at the roadways and what they could or couldn't do based on existing conditions. The focus, as Commissioner Chair Buckley had asked the applicant earlier, is the residential component is allowed in this G context. Whether it's U or S, I don't know that that would influence staff one way or the other. The U is not consistent with the context for this specific area.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of getting at, is like we've hemmed ourselves into a situation where the suburban design standards that we're building around it won't allow us to really extend out of it without them having to request more variances through the process to like flex that. And that's my concern. If we're looking to build the neighborhood specifically around these schools, that's really what is here, is these schools. That is kind of the heart of the neighborhood. Building an area that specifically has that tighter, more compact feeling, that maybe if they wanted to go trick-or-treating in that neighborhood, that it could be designed in such a way we'd want a tighter in design. We wouldn't want the suburban design because it is what is encouraging people to drive and go through all these different sections. We want families to have access to the schools. We want the area to be walkable for kids where they can walk up the street. I don't know, the high schoolers probably to get sushi. That would be fun. I used to live in a farm town, so I didn't have access to that. But like, that's what kids do in these suburban neighborhoods. We want them to be able to walk around, but if we're just constantly hemming ourselves in through these suburban design strategies in an area that essentially has only gotten that MGS standard, then we never look towards an opportunity to move one up to the MGU standard and move another one in different directions. That's my only concern. I guess I was just looking to understand staff's process of thinking about it and like how did we come to this in the MGS was appropriate. What I'm hearing is we looked at the neighborhood, everything else is MGS, we chose MGS because that's where, what we're working with in that.
And that's part of it. So as I said, if you zoom out and look at the context as suburban, there is no connectivity, direct pedestrian connectivity in Academy Park. The closest neighborhood you have on the, and you've got to look at the topography, look where the roadways and the stoplights are. There is the neighborhood to the west. There are two neighborhoods to the west. To the north is more commercial. You have the golf course, which kind of separates the residential community to the southeast. And then to the north and northeast is the other school that they have there. There isn't a grid pattern. Let's put it this way. I would not let my child walk into this particular area from the surrounding neighborhoods. Unless you're coming directly from the west, crossing Wadsworth with the topography and going to go up to Mansfield, that's the only place that has connectivity to a residential neighborhood.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think for me, I've just taken the 76 down this section and across 76, and it's just when we don't invest in these types of transit uses and we don't make sure that we're creating the neighborhood spaces where those transit uses can thrive in the long run. Ultimately, Lakewood, and I expect this to happen, as if nobody hasn't heard, RTD's got 20% budget deficit. We'll be losing bus services if we don't start thinking about how we support those bus services. And kids ride free on RTD. That could be one solution. They literally have an east-west route going by this neighborhood and a north-south route going by this neighborhood that is walkable to the schools. I know not everybody's a fan of the public bus, but I ride them all the time. They're perfectly safe. But if we're not actually building around the idea of people riding the buses, if we're not building or thinking about zoning those spaces to that, then yeah, we're going to get more neighborhoods where people drive and people drive all around, and then we get congestion and get to all this different stuff. So I'll end that though. I've already been going for 15 minutes, so I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. We have Commissioner Williams has a light on, and we'll come back to some comments from the applicant in a bit. Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do see that there is a bus stop there on Wadsworth near this facility or this property, which, I mean, I am not familiar enough with the what services provided there from RTD, but I tend to agree with what my colleague here says in general, which is, wanting to ensure that we are creating a built environment that allows to have transit service be utilized there. But I also stand by my previous statements that we're not really here today to determine what the applicant's future use of this will look like. I would hope that the applicant sort of internalizes some of these thoughts and works with existing stakeholders to address that. I had an additional question about access on the north end of the property, realizing that there is a 12-foot retaining wall, and so that probably creates significant barrier for additional traffic flow north-south there, and we're then reliant on either Wadsworth or on that Teller Street location. So apologies, that was like why my light was actually on. I will say though, that sushi place is great for anyone who hasn't been there.
All right.
I went yesterday, just saying.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Mr. Salazar with the applicant indicated a moment ago he'd like to speak. So sir, come on up, and I think you had a response to some of Commissioner Carias's comments. And then I actually had some questions for you to follow up to. So
Okay, perfect. Well,
welcome
no,
back
and
up.
I just wanted to come up and answer Commissioner Carias.
Yes.
Carias's question on why MGS. This site was rezoned to MGS as of January 1st. This site was always planned to be rezoned to MGS when the city adopted their new zoning code. But unfortunately, that got repealed through the referendum, and that is why we're sitting here today independently rezoning it. One other item I just wanted to mention as well is some of the preliminary street construction plans that we're showing on Teller Street is widening Teller Street and adding a form of a queuing, I don't know exactly the correct traffic terminology, lane on the west side of Teller on our side of the development as well.
Okay, yeah. That was actually going to be along the lines of questioning I had for you, and it may be better suited for your team of engineers as well. So if it's suited to them, feel free to come up. But yeah, can you describe the public improvements that you'll be making that are found in the traffic study that was done that's went along with this rezoning? That was the one assuming, I think, 336 units, you said.
Yeah, so not only did the traffic study calculate a 336 unit development, we were required to do pre-construction street construction plans showing what improvements that the city would like to see along Teller Street. And I'm happy to bring up some of my traffic guys that can talk probably a lot more eloquently.
Yes, please.
In terms of some of those improvements that have been requested.
Sure. Hi, my name is Scott Kilgore with Fox Tuttle Transportation Group. I prepared the traffic impact study that was used to support this rezoning. So in terms of the specific public improvements that were included as the kind of conceptual public improvements, there are kind of three main pieces, I guess, that are included in that. So the first one is the conceptual site plan that was used for the traffic impact study proposed closing the access to Mansfield from this site. So that was included as kind of the first one, was kind of closing up that median. The second piece was, as Isaiah was saying, is an widening of Teller along the northern portion of this property. And that would provide essentially a bypass lane. So as vehicles are queuing to enter into the Denver Christian School site, it provides an additional lane for those queued vehicles to not block all access along Teller. So that improvement was included. And then the third piece was an extension of the westbound left turn lane at Mansfield and Wadsworth. So extending that storage so that there's less blockage and vehicles can continue to circulate through the area.
All right, so I was writing that down as you went. So you mentioned closing the Mansfield access, that's on the southern part of the site that's in question tonight. Some widening for a queue storage place along Teller. I guess that would be the northern part of your site, kind of, I guess, really between Denver Christian and Addenbrook, right?
I believe it's along the Denver Christian property, kind of where that north access goes in.
The northernmost access to the
yes,
site.
so
yeah,
from
north
there
of the
to
ditch.
the northern edge of this property.
Okay. Yeah, no, I got that. And you said extension of the westbound left turn lane at Wadsworth. That's on Mansfield.
On Mansfield, yes.
So
that's
just
correct.
and these are just to accommodate like additional traffic from your development that's mixed in with the school traffic. What does that do to like the level of service of traffic, like post your development and post these public improvements compared to what exists now without your development and the school traffic during the school peak periods?
Sure, yeah. So to be clear, our traffic study was assuming a 336 residential unit development on this property. In addition to that, our traffic study did include just traditional background growth looking 20 years into the future within the area. And then we coordinated with the staff at the city, and they informed us that there are also plans for the Denver Christian School to expand. So our traffic study actually includes that expansion as the basis that then we are adding our traffic on top of. So the improvements that we identified through our traffic study would help alleviate the additional traffic from 336 units on this site, plus the additional students at the Denver Christian School.
Okay, so the point of the public improvements identified that you're committing to is really going to help improve a lot of these traffic problems we've been talking about tonight that the schools are currently experiencing.
Yeah, so from a traffic capacity and circulation standpoint, certainly extending that westbound left turn helps ensure that there's still movement out on Mansfield when there's a high queue to turn left there. So that definitely helps with the school circulation. And then in terms of the expansion on Teller, that absolutely is primarily designed to help the school. It doesn't really benefit this development, but that will help improve circulation and keep that free-flowing when the school queues are present.
Okay, and maybe a little bit less intuitively, the improvement of closing the Mansfield access entirely. That's a complete closure, no ins, no outs, like closing up the median. What benefit does that play into the traffic circulation in the area?
Yeah, so that was actually something that staff requested kind of at the beginning of the process to look at that site plan that was conceptual. But yeah, closing the access on Mansfield also does help with the school circulation by removing any of those turning conflicts. So you have fewer vehicles turning left. You have another access onto Mansfield that is now closed, so you have a continuous sidewalk through that area. You don't have, students walking that need to worry about turning vehicles. And the vision was to direct traffic to Teller as opposed to Mansfield to try to keep as much traffic to this site out of the school traffic entirely.
Okay, great. So I appreciate all that information. That is, as most traffic studies are kind of designed to do, talking a lot about the vehicle capacity, which is appropriate since, just the existing reality is a lot of the parents, the vast majority we've heard are bringing their students here by car. But we did hear from some parents earlier tonight that there's parents dropping their students off from school a distance away, just they don't have to sit in the congestion. I suspect no matter how much we improve it, there's still some level of congestion around a school at pickup and drop-off time. That's just inevitable. So parents will probably continue to do this pattern no matter what we do in terms of roadway improvements. Where students may be dropped off and walk. We may see an increasing number of students walk or bike here in the future, especially with residential development. Maybe 336 or fewer apartments are an attractive place to live for a family who wants to attend one of these schools, and so there's some students walking now. And so can you go through what your traffic study considered or proposed for pedestrian improvements in the area, and particularly being in mind that some of these traffic improvements, like widening a street and adding turn lanes, it is known to have an effect of tempting cars to speed up if it's not so congested that they're able to do so, right? And so that can often work counter to pedestrian safety, which makes traffic engineering tricky, right? We're trying to solve for multiple modes and multiple things, and sometimes they work against each other, and we have to find the balance. So. Talk about what you did with the balance for looking at pedestrian safety in this area for the children.
For sure, yeah. So this traffic study is really designed to ensure that we're planning as far as infrastructure improvements are involved. So looking at kind of those bigger ticket items that would be more for vehicle capacity. Mm-hmm. In terms of pedestrians, we do look at the site plan and look at circulation. My traffic study is pretty much exclusively around this specific property. So when it comes to wider issues like that, I'm really looking at how people are circulating around and along this frontage. So the kind of pre-existing issues, I know it's something that the city is very aware of, and we had a number of conversations about just the school issues and what the challenges are before starting this traffic study. So we're definitely keeping that in mind, that these are kind of pre-existing issues. And to your point, the study was particularly designed to capture school traffic. So we typically wouldn't look at the school dismissal hour, since that's not kind of a peak generator for what this land use was included in the study. But that was added to make sure that we're capturing any sort of impact that this development might have on the school traffic.
Okay, thank you for that. To clarify, this traffic study is assuming the existence of the closed gate at Teller and Pierce, correct?
Yes, the traffic study does account for the gate being closed.
All right. Did you run any scenarios where, by some political or negotiation magic, the gate goes away, and what impact that has?
No, that was not accounted for in our study. Our direction from the city was that that gate is closed, and we should assume that it remains closed with this development.
Okay. Given that you didn't model it, would you venture to say anything in your professional opinion about some of the broader impacts of if that gate ever did go away?
As a professional, I think having an additional option for folks would certainly shift traffic in a different direction and would probably alleviate some of the pressure on that intersection at Teller and Mansfield.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. That's all very helpful. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out and sitting through 2.5 hours of testimony and other things that we could get to you. It's very helpful. Any other questions from Commission? All right. Any other statements you want to make, Mr. Salazar? I think you were done with.
No, not at this time. I just want to thank all the commissioners and neighbors and stakeholders that came. I'm more than willing to sit and talk and continue to figure out a solution to this kind of pinch point traffic issue that currently exists today, with or without our development, even with 1,000 offices or 1,000 people that probably worked at those offices years ago. But currently, I just want to thank everybody for their time, and I know it's been a long night, but thank you.
Thank you. You reminded me, actually. That was the other question I wanted to ask your traffic engineer. You may have to come back up here again. How does the trip generation and traffic impacts of this proposed development compare to, like, theoretically what was possible, what was there before, right? These office buildings, you demolished them. They haven't been full and operating like they did in their heyday for a while. But once upon a time, they did have a heyday, and they did have a lot of traffic generation, I'm sure.
And that was all pre-COVID.
Right.
I think it's because it was a government office and then they closed.
Right. So how does the projected traffic from, this site that is possible due to this rezoning, compare to the traffic that, was possible in the past under the old zoning?
Yeah, so I don't actually have that number available at this moment, just because our traffic study was looking at a specific site and a specific proposed use.
Okay.
And especially under the past zoning and the future proposed zoning, there's such a variety of potential uses that could look like. That's
sure.
Yeah, not something that I have.
Okay. I'll maybe venture a few feet further out on the limb than you're willing to there. I believe it's correct to say that generally speaking, office land uses, like per square foot of building, have a higher traffic generation rate than multifamily residential land uses per square foot of building. Is that something I'm generally correct in believing?
Generally, yes. In terms of square footage, yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so. It does point to the possibility that these improvements that you're making and the future traffic you are anticipating are in some ways maybe less than what existed here in the past. Granted, maybe before we had all these school problems, but the existence of the schools with the pickup and drop off lines mixing in with the traffic from this site, whatever land use it has. But it's a fair general point to make that in many ways, like a future residential use here could be less problematic for traffic than a future employment office use.
I mean, yeah, the previous use was generating traffic at some point. Our study was based on counts from 2025 when that was closed, so.
Got it. All right, Commissioner Williams.
I was going to make a motion, so.
I'm game to that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
I move that the Lakewood Planning Commission accept the findings of fact in A-I as set forth and recommend that case number RZ260001 is recommended for approval by City Council.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? I'll make a few general remarks. I appreciate the community coming out and you know, the stakeholders in the surrounding schools and neighborhood being involved in this process and your proactive attempts to manage the traffic that you've already taken, and yeah, we acknowledge that your concern about it getting worse from this development is real. I personally am reassured by you know, the testimony of the applicant about the public improvements that they've committed to in their traffic study to do what they can to at least help that study on the margins. You know, continue to urge staff to work through these traffic issues as well. You know, this rezoning request, of course, we make a recommendation, it goes on to City Council. You know, maybe that can spur some more elected official to elected official conversations than even what's happened in the past about you know, the future of items like this gate. That I think everyone here is, you know, on all sides is pretty much in agreement that we'd like to see the closed status of that gate change. So I'm greatly reassured by just the existence of this traffic study and the testimony provided by the applicant. That it will help a tough situation. I mean, we can't ask them to solve everything. This will be an ongoing issue. But I'm glad that the right people, the right stakeholders are involved, and I just want to strongly encourage the development team to continue to work with your stakeholders. They're supportive of you bringing more vitality to the area. You know, I ask you and beg you even to, you know, continue to work collaboratively with the neighbors who are here tonight, and you know, make this a win-win with the actions of your development and what's happening with you know, just the vehicle traffic and you know, future pedestrian bike safety and all these issues in this area. Commissioner Carius.
Yeah, my final comments are really just on thinking about the use of the site. I think the traffic study indicates there's good opportunities for improvement, and the site, you know, traffic flow, the choices for land use based on MGS is appropriate for the site. I just hope that the, you know, urban design factors can be included when you're, you know, looking forward with the plan and looking to, you know, develop it out in a different way, factoring in the fact that there is a significant bus route. I'd consider it significant. Going north-south along Wadsworth, you have access to nearby park and ride that RTD offers, and a route that is fairly useful east-west, local connector, different stuff like that. So really building out that pedestrian grid and beginning to transition us, you know, into something that's a little bit more pedestrian friendly, and maybe you know, a neighborhood that could be in, that would be great. I know you also said that originally there was like, what, 336 units in the traffic study, and you're considering going lower. Just based on the pricing of nearby apartment units, I'm looking at $2,500 on average for a 2-bedroom unit and $1,800 on average for a 1-bedroom unit. And I hope that, you know, you can bring, I always prefer more because I'm a renter and it is expensive living out here. So anything to help costs, to help us move along. Also, you know, creating a good, comfortable pedestrian space so that high schoolers can go to Eeny Meeny Sushi Roll, which I've been informed is very tasty. So I I think they'd be encouraged by that. So having some sort of pedestrian connection over to that space, over into the kind of restaurants in that section, and beginning to transition this neighborhood from a just straight up suburban area, but into one that is a self-contained, self-sustainable, living neighborhood, I think is what should be the long-term goal and the purpose of the comprehensive plan and what its vision was as well. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Commissioner Carius. Yeah, Mr. Salazar, myself, and my colleague here have just made a couple requests of you. I'm wondering if you can come up and, before we take a vote, just comment and reflect. And I'd be curious, what, I mean, you don't have to, of course, but what
I'm here.
What you're here, so I'm curious about your reactions to, Commissioner Carius's and my comments on what we'd like to see going forward. Yeah, should this be approved?
No, I appreciate everybody's commentary and candor tonight, even hearing from stakeholders and neighbors in the neighborhood, and it's something that we will take to heart and we'll really try to design around a very thoughtful development to not only fit the vision of the comprehensive plan that was adopted last year, as well as just to continue to improve the neighborhood and offer, attainable, affordable living in this future development.
All right. Any comments you care to offer on, walkability, site layout, what you can do within the bounds of the MGS to get at Commissioner Carius's concerns? I mean, I share his sentiment, right? We want to see this a walkable, vibrant place, and slowly shift the vibe over time of that's in the comprehensive plan of making all of Lakewood more walkable.
Absolutely agree, and want to do everything in our best efforts within design and within reason to make it safe for pedestrians. I'll also add that, I've been part of this neighborhood possibly my entire life. I grew up in Governor's Ranch across the street by Southwest Plaza. I went to Columbine High School. I still currently live down in that area. My children actually go to Colorado Academy, so I spend a ton of time in this area. Grew up learning how to play golf at Pinehurst Country Club, so it's very near and dear to my heart, and very familiar with what has changed and what needs to change in the neighborhood. And I'm here to continue to testify that we're going to do our best efforts to make it safe, attainable, and just a great neighborhood.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. With that, Commissioners, I'm seeing no more discussion, no more questions, no more statements by anyone. So we have a motion and a second, I believe. Yeah, we do. We do have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution recommending approval of this zoning change request from PDMES to MGS, recommending that to City Council. So let's vote. If you are in favor of that resolution, vote yes. If not, vote no. All right, and congratulations, Mr. Salazar. That passes by a vote of 5 yeses and 0 noes. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thank you, staff, for all your answers to questions. Thank you to the applicants. Thank you to the community for being engaged with this. And yeah, please stay engaged with this developer and the process. We appreciate you coming here tonight. Mr. Rice, our next agenda item, please.
Item 5, general business.
All right. Mr. Rice, do you have any general business items for us?
I have a couple things. One, I wanted to follow up on the poll with the 8 council topics. I don't have results yet. I have 2 commissioners that I haven't heard back from. And what we'll do, I'll prompt the commission again to provide me some feedback, and then whether I get it or not, we'll share results next week. How's that? We've got a meeting next week.
That sounds lovely. So yeah, if you're one of those 2 people, I mean, you know who you are. Please get back to Mr. Rice. Anything else for us, sir?
I do. So next week, everybody's here. Does anybody have a conflict next week?
I actually do. I've had a work conflict come up.
Okay.
We still have quorum without me, though, right?
Possibly. So I'll need to contact all the commissioners individually to make sure we have a quorum for next week.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carius, do you have a comment? Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Neill did communicate with me just today that she wouldn't be able to make this meeting, hence the reason for her absence. Today she had an event come up. She's anticipating being here the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I-
so if
That's-
Commissioner O'Neill is available, then we'll.
Yeah.
And I
So-
apologize about that. I'm out of state and cannot, for
And you-
work,
you
and
had
cannot
given
change.
me-
I had said that already?
Yes, you had mentioned that one.
Okay, great. That's awesome.
All right. All right. Well, even if Commissioner Williams cannot make it, if Commissioner O'Neill can, then we have 5, and that's a quorum, and so we'll be okay.
So I would
I-
be confirming, I'll be reaching out, minus Commissioner Williams, next week. I'll probably call all of you Tuesday for confirmation.
Yeah, thank you. That'll
In
be.
addition to the typical email that goes out.
All right, yeah, that'll be much appreciated. We do have, I know, next week, a planning commission meeting with a rezoning case and a board of adjustment meeting to immediately follow with a variance case.
And I do have one more item, just so the commission understands upcoming calendar. So we have, because it's next week, I can't count, the 19th and then the 26th of August. So though we have cases calendared for those 2 dates. We don't have anything early in September, but we are looking at the 16th and the 23rd. And it could be, unless the commission tells me that we have a conflict. So it could be both dates. It could be the 16th and the 23rd. Or if we can't solidify those dates, we're looking at the first 3 meetings in October. Because we've got a handful of things. There's a plat that we need to process. There is a rezoning case and possibly a special use permit that we hope to get in September, October. But more to come, because they still have a couple weeks before I can actually say, this is your date.
Okay, but yeah, for now, we do have dates confirmed for the 19th, 1 week from now, and the 26th, 2 weeks from now. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Commissioner.
before we proceed, Chair Buckley, can we, do we have minutes that we also have to approve tonight?
Oh, we skipped that. I did, because I mislabeled the agenda, and nobody pointed that out. So that should be 5, 6, and 7 on the agenda. So yes, we do have minutes. Thank you, Ms. Stanek.
You are quite right. All right, we'll get back to approval of minutes after general business. How about that?
And that was it. So calendar, Commissioner Pohl, and quorum.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Rice, I just wanted to make sure that I continue to cover myself here. I also have a conflict on the 26th, where I'm also out of town.
Of August.
Of August.
Good.
Did I communicate that to you as well?
That one I don't recall.
Okay.
Maybe. You had mentioned availability when we were talking, not in July. A couple dates, you said you were available, a couple in August.
I
but you
do
didn't-
have September 2nd. Good. For now. Although, we can offline about this. I apologize. My schedule is really challenging over the next 2 months, but otherwise, more available, so I apologize. I just wanted to make sure about that next date. I will miss both of those meetings.
Okay.
Okay.
I won't be here either for the 26th, so I think that breaks quorum.
That breaks the quorum.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, so we'll need to recalendar the meeting on the 26th. Yeah, and Mr. Rice, we had previously discussed, I think at a previous meeting, we voted to open up the first 4 Wednesdays of every month to meetings.
Through October.
Knowing we had a big backlog, I think we did through October.
Correct.
Is it advisable and helpful for all this scheduling, and now especially if we have to reschedule on August the 26th to make a motion to extend that through the end of the year or longer?
That may be helpful.
Okay. Well, yeah, so knowing that, staff will continue to check in with all of us for our availability, I would move that we open up the first 4 Wednesdays of November The fourth, well, let me say this. The fourth Thursday in November is the day before Thanksgiving, so let's miss that day. But the first three, and actually the second Wednesday is Veterans Day, looking at the calendar now. So the first and third are our normal days anyways, right? So maybe it doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter for November.
and that's okay, because the other thing we do as we get into December as well, we try and stay away from the holidays.
Yeah. All right.
Whether it's right before Christmas or a couple weeks, we're gonna there is the comment was we're trying to slip something into the holiday, so we just push the applicant. They either need to come earlier or later in the year.
All right.
So maybe it's not important for those 2 months.
All right, well, I had a bright idea for a second there to try to give us more dates to work with, but just looking at the calendar, it's probably not the best idea. So never mind, I'm not going to make that motion I was going to make. Commissioner Carius.
I was just wondering, how backed up are we? And do we need to consider a special meeting to like get through things?
Yeah,
because I don't want to hold up these things. Like you mentioned earlier that like the one guy had to pause for the whole thing going on, and like it's hard enough to get us together. But if I can drag him and him, the ones who are absent, out on a Saturday and we sit down for 4 hours, I don't care.
Right. So the items that we have queued up that are ready to go, we can make in the meeting dates with September and October.
Okay.
And we'll probably be doing 2 per evening, but we can make all of that work in September and October. What we come down to is it's not that you want to know all this, it's this calendaring thing, right? So we pick a date and we get 2 applicants and we put them on a date. Well, the applicant that's ahead of them, right? Because these 2 want to go earlier, but there's an applicant. The applicant misses a deadline, forgets something, and they push back. But they don't want to push back now a month because we've already calendared this date for 2. So it's kind of a nightmare. I'll work through all that. But I have enough dates for the cases that we have at this time to calendar the applicants.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
Other question. Just in the interest of like saving us all time at these meetings, the staff's presentations are lovely. We love staff. But also, I watch the videos before we come here, and I assume most people watch the videos, and also you guys stick straight to the facts every time. And then you come up here, and you essentially repeat the same thing again at the presentation. I'm counting that as like it's been submitted into the evidence, into the record, because it's in the public record online. We could probably save ourselves 10 to 15 minutes if we just like skip that part. I'm just gonna throw it out there because it seems duplicative, and that's 10 to 15 minutes per application.
And that's a commissioner discussion.
It is.
We've played, and I'll agree with the result of this. We've actually played the videos at the meeting and had staff not present because the video was recorded and you're getting like for like, right? Someone in person presenting, you're not going to get the exact same presentation. I didn't care for that. Neither did the commission. So they asked for in-person presentations, and we are doing those. If you don't want the comment from the chair at the time, I believe, was the staff and applicant presentation is not for the benefit of the commission. It's for the benefit of the public. If nobody shows up, I think that's appropriate, right? You can say, please give us the abbreviated version, and we can get up in front of you and say whatever the recommendation is. But the presentations are more for the people in the audience than the commission.
Yeah, I would make my pitch to the commission that if they're not watching the video before they're coming to the planning commission meeting, I have to sit through and do that. And so do all of us. We should be, I assume everybody is watching the videos. Maybe not Topher, he might have been sleeping. But we at least I just want to move us along at a faster pace. And if it's not new information, I want information being presented to us. I think it's important to have the applicant come up and present, and give them, that way they have the opportunity to say anything they want at that period of time. Like maybe they've expanded the presentation, maybe they've changed the presentation. The applicant themselves should have free reign to do whatever, but staff, you guys are really coming up and just giving us like the bare bones structure of it each time. And so I'm thinking we save ourselves 10 to 15 minutes per item per meeting. That's almost 30 minutes each time. There's no new information really being presented. Yes, maybe they slightly change up how they say things, but staff knows what they're doing. They're not going to change it up that much.
All right, I appreciate that time-saving suggestion, Commissioner Carius. I would tend to agree more with Mr. Rice that having the staff presentation is a benefit to the audience who shows up. I think it's quite a barrier to come out to a planning commission meeting at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night and possibly stay for quite a long time before you get a chance to speak. And so I don't assume that everyone who's here to speak has watched the videos like all of us do, just because it's one more burden on the already inherently difficult process of participating as a member of the public in these meetings. And so I think for that brief period of time that Mr. Rice mentioned where I was on the commission and we had the staff presentations just online, and we did a much more abbreviated version of them here compared to when we've moved to the current practice of a complete presentation. I, in my opinion, feel that it's elevated the quality of the public input and discussion. I think it's beneficial for members of the public to hear the complete set of information and facts from staff and the applicant before public comment. And that's the reason why the public comment is after the applicant and staff presentation as well. Just so people, when they get up to speak, if they had any questions that are just answered by those factual presentations, they don't have to focus on their comments on that, and it elevates the quality of what they have to say by being more fully informed, in my view. So that's how I see that issue as well. Commissioner Molinar.
I just wanted to add to have staff presentation online and in person probably makes it also more accessible, because then people can choose like which way they attain the information. I have some students who cannot access certain things online because of various things that they're, like various disabilities or things, and things in person work better. So if we have two versions, it might be more accessible for people.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Molinar. Anyone else? All right, I think we are done with general business then. But yeah, thank you for your suggestion, Commissioner Carius, even though I don't fully agree with it. I appreciate any and all of you, bringing suggestions for process improvements for us to discuss openly. Mr. Rice, let's go back to that minutes agenda item.
Item 5, approval of minutes for November 19th of 2025 and June 3rd of 2025.
All right, can I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
May I interrupt? It's not June 3rd. I have my glasses on. I'm looking up. It's June 3rd of 2026, not 2025.
Right, yeah. For the record, Commissioner Holman, can you clarify with your motion the dates of the minutes you're seeking to approve?
Yeah, I motion to approve the minutes from June 5th, 2025. 2026. June,
I think it's June 6th, 2026.
Oh my
and
God.
November 19th, 2025.
I motion to approve the minutes from June 6th, 2026.
And November 19th.
November 19th, 2025.
And Chair, if I may, I apologize. So it's November 19th, 2025 and June 3rd, 2026.
Okay, sorry, gosh.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure we get...
All right, what our attorney said. Is that your motion?
Second.
All right, taking that as a yes. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 All right, all opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. We passed the minutes. Having no other business before the commission, I will adjourn this meeting at 9:58 p.m. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
There's so many numbers.
I never make that motion because I don't remember the dates, you know, I have to see on the schedule.
I'm sorry about my schedule. I thought that it's really. I am out of town more than 50% of the nights between now and the end of September. Like I am. You said that a lot of you can't pay me.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes, warmer than May her tender sigh.